Chapter 567. When the dishes were placed on the table, everyone's wine glasses were filled, and they each drank a cup. Father Yang smiled mysteriously and winked at his son, saying, "Xiaoyu, didn't you bring back a gift for Qingmei? Why aren't you taking it out?" Young Xiaoyu understood and hurriedly picked up a beautifully wrapped gift box from the side. He arrogantly glanced at Tang Zheng with a proud smile and said, "Qingmei, this is a New Year's gift that I specially bought for you. I hope you like it." Governor Lu saw this and smiled knowingly, praising, "Xiaoyu, you're too thoughtful. Qingmei, why aren't you thanking Xiaoyu?" Lu Qingmei wrinkled her brows and looked at Tang Zheng before shaking her head. "I'm sorry, I can't accept it." Yang Xiaoyu's expression slightly changed but quickly returned to normal and said, "Qingmei, I specially chose this for you. I'm sure you'll like it." "That's right, this is Xiaoyu's kind intentions. Qingmei, just accept it." Mother Yang also supported her son. "Qingmei, how can you be so rude? Why aren't you thanking Xiaoyu?" Governor Lu said with an unhappy expression. Lu Qingmei snorted and remained unmoved. She pouted in a fit of pique and immediately fell into an impasse. Tang Zheng gently drank a mouthful of soup and raised his head. He glanced at the gift box and calmly said, "Since you don't want it, then don't take it." Lu Qingmei was his woman, and no one could force her to accept something she didn't like. Hearing these words, Lu Qingmei's eyebrows danced in delight, but the other people's expressions greatly changed. Governor Lu stared hatefully at Tang Zheng. "This little brat really doesn't know what's good for him. Letting you sit here and eat is already giving you face, yet you still dare to mess around. This is too much." However, due to his dignity as an elder, he didn't directly scold him and restrained himself. Yang Xiaoyu, on the other hand, didn't have the same temperament and immediately exploded. "Brat, what is the meaning of this? This is my gift to Qingmei. Who are you to tell her what to do?" Tang Zheng glanced at him indifferently. He didn't like this Yang Xiaoyu from the start. This person was too arrogant and acted as if everyone else should be a head lower than him. This was the style of many nouveau riche. He could flaunt his strength in front of others, but if he wanted to do so in front of Tang Zheng, and even have designs on his woman, then he really made a mistake. Before Tang Zheng could retaliate, Lu Qingmei had already impatiently retaliated. She couldn't bear to see her beloved being looked down upon and provoked like this. She immediately glared at Yang Xiaoyu and said, "Yang Xiaoyu, what kind of attitude is this? Tang Zheng is my boyfriend. He has a name, not some brat, and my boyfriend has the right to decide whether or not I accept other people's gifts." Yang Xiaoyu was suddenly startled as if he had been hit by an invisible fist. His face turned red as he indignantly said, "Qingmei, don't be fooled by his flowery words." "Humph, I know what to do. I don't need you to remind me," Lu Qingmei unhappily said. Tang Zheng looked at Yang Xiaoyu with ridicule and of course held Lu Qingmei's hand and said, "Qingmei, it's not worth getting angry with this kind of person. Don't be angry and hurt your body. Let's eat. You don't say the food here is pretty good." His appearance was like a spineless foodie who only cared about the taste of the food at this critical moment. However, Lu Qingmei understood Tang Zheng's thoughts. He wasn't afraid of Yang Xiaoyu. Even if there were hundreds of Yang Xiaoyu, he wouldn't be afraid. He was just worried about the relationship between the Lu and Yang families, and didn't want to make the atmosphere too awkward. But Yang Xiaoyu clearly didn't appreciate it. He placed the gift in front of Lu Qingmei and said, "Qingmei, this gift is the latest handbag from LV this year. It's a global limited edition. Many socialites use this. I specially chose this for you, unlike other people who can't even bear to give a New Year's gift." Without a doubt, this kind of luxury was the favorite of many women. But Yang Xiaoyu really didn't understand Lu Qingmei. This kind of nouveau riche style gift couldn't arouse her interest at all. Instead, it made her feel disgusted. Tang Zheng's expression was calm. He wasn't angry at all because of these words, but the other person reminded him that as Lu Qingmei's man, he really didn't give her a New Year's gift. This was really a bit of a dereliction of duty. "You're right. I really didn't prepare a gift for Qingmei. When we go back, I'll have to put in some effort to choose a gift." Tang Zheng looked at Lu Qingmei apologetically and said. Lu Qingmei's heart warmed. She held his hand and sweetly said, "No matter what you give, I'll like it." This was a public display of affection and a brazen slap in the face. She firmly rejected Yang Xiaoyu's gift, but gladly accepted Tang Zheng's gift. The difference in treatment was too big. Yang Xiaoyu felt like he had been ruthlessly slapped in the face. He said with a red face, "Qingmei, don't listen to his bragging. He's just a student. What kind of gift can he give you? My gift is worth hundreds of thousands. It's 1,000,000 times better than his." "Is hundreds of thousands very valuable? This is the jade bracelet he gave me. It's 1,000,000 times more valuable than yours." Lu Qingmei raised her hand, and a sparkling and translucent jade bracelet slid out. This bracelet, whether it was jade or jade, was of the highest quality. If it was auctioned, it would definitely be worth several million. Everyone present was either rich or noble, so they naturally had some understanding of the hot jade market. Mother Yang was especially passionate about it. Normally, the rich ladies would often study and learn from each other. With a single glance, they could tell that this was a top-quality item. Suddenly, there was complete silence. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. No one would believe that a student could so easily give out a gift worth over 1,000,000. Even Yang Xiaoyu didn't have such a large amount of money. Especially since Governor Lu knew about Tang Zheng's family situation, he felt that it was a fantasy. In fact, this jade bracelet's original quality was not so good. However, after Tang Zheng refined it, it was reborn and had such an extraordinary quality. In the beginning, when Tang Zheng refined these jade items, they did not have this additional effect. It was only after his cultivation had greatly increased that he was able to refine them. Now the jade items he refined were not as simple as simply engraving a set of arrays into them. Through the meticulous refining of the 9 revolving alchemy furnace, the material was reborn, and the defensive power of these jade items was increased. This was also because when Tian Chanzi passed on the refining method to Tang Zheng, he figured it out. However, these jade items could not be considered magic weapons. They only had a little bit of Fa. However, this was only temporary. Tang Zheng had already decided that in the future, he would diligently study the refining technique and refine enough magic weapons to equip the people around him. Now he already had a lot of cultivators around him, but there were too few suitable magic weapons. Without magic weapons, the strength of the cultivators would be greatly reduced. In addition, the value of this jade bracelet had far exceeded the value of the jade itself. It was far from being something that could be bought with just a few million yuan. This was what the people opposite him didn't understand. In the private room, the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. Governor Lu hurriedly restrained his shocked expression. He coughed and broke the silence. Come, let's drink." Yang Xiaoyu took advantage of the situation and unwillingly put away the gift. He couldn't wait to immediately throw this bag into the smelly ditch. What luxury, it was just king waste. He fiercely glared at Tang Zheng, but saw the two of them looking at each other and smiling intimately. They didn't put him in their eyes at all. He couldn't help but burn with jealousy. His pupils seemed to be about to spit out fire. Father Yang was also a smart person. He didn't want to be entangled with the gift issue. He hurriedly called for them to drink. "Tang Zheng, come, let's drink a few cups." He was prepared to get Tang Zheng drunk and let him make a fool of himself in front of Lu Qingmei. He even wanted to say nonsense and reveal his true colors. Father Yang thought that after being in the business world for so many years, he could easily win against this young man in drinking. Yang Xiaoyu obviously guessed his father's thoughts. He smiled sinisterly and raised his wine cup. "Yes, how can we not drink during the New Year? Tang Zheng, don't tell me you don't dare to drink?" Provocation. He didn't believe that Tang Zheng wouldn't fall for it. Sure enough, Tang Zheng raised his wine cup and said, "Okay, but I'll toast to Uncle Lu first." In Tang Zheng's eyes, the 3 people of the Yang family were insignificant. However, he didn't want to neglect Lu Qingmei's father. His grandfather had taught him to respect the old and love the young since he was young. Governor Lu looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. It seemed that after half a year, he couldn't see through this young man anymore. His eyes were so deep, and the temperament that occasionally leaked out made him, a superior, couldn't help but be moved. However, these were all insignificant. If Tang Zheng dared to have ideas about his daughter, then he would make a fool of himself. Governor Lu also saw through Father Yang's thoughts, but he didn't point it out. This was because his goal was the same as the other parties. He wanted to expose Tang Zheng's true colors and let his daughter know that she was wrong. Okay, but young people are the future of the motherland. How can 1 cup be enough? 3 cups. Governor Lu said. Tang Zheng's expression didn't change as he lightly nodded. Then we'll do as Uncle Lu says. After each of them drank 3 cups, the 2 of them didn't have any reaction. Governor Lu was testing them with alcohol, so of course he wouldn't have any reaction. These 300 cups were equivalent to 200 grams of white wine, and they drank it so quickly. However, Tang Zheng didn't have any reaction, which meant that his alcohol tolerance wasn't low. But this didn't matter. So what if he had a high alcohol tolerance? He would still be defeated in a tag team battle. As a result, the 3 people of the Yang family began a tag team battle. Even Mother Yang personally participated in the battle for her son's happiness. Lu Qingmei was originally going to stop them, but when she saw the faint smile on Tang Zheng's face, she knew that he was fine and didn't say anything. Since you want to trick Tang Zheng, then let's see who wins and who loses. The father and daughter of the Lu family watched as the 4 people drank cup after cup of white wine. The table was already filled with empty wine bottles. Tang Zheng's expression didn't change, but the faces of the 3 people in front of him were already as red as peach blossoms. Mother Yang was already lying on the table, and Yang Xiaoyu was swaying as if he was sitting on a boat. His tongue had also become big, and he was actually wantonly bragging about his experiences in the Western Empire, especially the glorious deeds of shuttling through the many Western beauties. Father Yang still had a bit of a wolf left in him. When he heard his son's drunken words, he inwardly cursed and looked across the table. Sure enough, Governor Lu's face was already dark. Father Yang hurriedly pulled his son back, wanting to stop him, but Yang Xiaoyu continued to boast shamelessly. Dad, let me say it. I want to let this brat know how powerful I am. Qingmei is mine. Who does he think he is? He wants to steal my woman? Dream on. As he spoke, his body swayed and fell back, bringing Father Yang with him to the ground. Governor Lu was flabbergasted. Lu Qingmei heartlessly laughed and affectionately held onto Tang Zheng's arm. Tang Zheng gently put down his wine glass and lightly said, You're drunk so quickly? You're too weak. Chapter 568. Father Yang awkwardly stood up and helped his son into a chair before he awkwardly explained. Don't listen to his nonsense. Xiaoyu is good at everything, but he likes to boast a little. Nonsense. But no one believed it. This was the real truth after drinking. Father Yang originally wanted to let Tang Zheng fall for it, but in the end his son fell for it. He was really lifting a rock and smashing his own foot. Although Governor Lu's face was dark, it wasn't a big deal for a young man to be a little more open. After all, who hasn't been young before? This wasn't a fatal weakness. Father Yang and Governor Lu were well aware of this, so they didn't think that Yang Xiaoyu would be eliminated because of this. They just felt a little embarrassed. Only Lu Qingmei was the happiest. This Yang Xiaoyu looked like a decent person, but she didn't expect that his private life would be so licentious. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Bang. Suddenly, the door was pushed open, dispelling the awkwardness. Several police officers were standing at the door, and the person leading them was surprisingly Commissioner Hong, who had met Tang Zheng once at the Lei family's residence. When Bureau Chief Hong saw Tang Zheng, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. He immediately took out his pistol and aimed it at Tang Zheng. The others also did the same thing. One by one, the black muzzles were aimed at Tang Zheng. It was as if he made the slightest move, they would not hesitate to pull the trigger at the same time. The people in the room immediately froze. Lu Qingmei subconsciously thought that the incident last night must have been exposed, and the police must be here to arrest Tang Zheng. She stood up without hesitation and stood in front of Tang Zheng, looking at the people who came in with vigilance, like a tigress protecting her cub. Father Yang immediately sobered up a little, and looked at the scene in shock. Governor Lu recognized Bureau Chief Hong, but he did not stand up. His mind was racing as he wondered why the police were here. Moreover, they had raised their guns as soon as they opened the door. This hostile atmosphere was not normal. Could it be that the enemy was targeting him? But he was the head of a province. Other than Tian Shuji, who would dare to go against him? Governor Lu's heart trembled. Wasn't Commissioner Hong one of Tian Shuji's men? Could this really be a plot against him? However, he didn't panic and asked calmly, "Old Hong, what are you doing?" Commissioner Hong's attention was completely focused on Tang Zheng from the moment he entered the door. He didn't notice the Governor Lu sitting next to him at all. When he heard this familiar voice, he was stunned for a moment. He quickly looked to the side and was shocked. It really was Governor Lu. He asked in a panic, "Governor Lu, why are you here?" Governor Lu asked with a serious expression, "Why can't I be here?" Commissioner Hong knew that he had asked the wrong question and quickly explained, "Governor Lu, we were ordered to arrest Tang Zheng. You and him." Commissioner Hong's throat was dry. He was really King unlucky. Why was Tang Zheng with Governor Lu? Could it be that yesterday's incident had something to do with Governor Lu? If that was the case, then it would be a fight between the higher-ups. If he got involved, then he might not even have his bones left. This pool of water was too deep. "You are here to arrest Tang Zheng?" Governor Lu and Father Yang both frowned. Wasn't Tang Zheng just a student? Why were the police mobilizing so many people, as if they were facing a great enemy? It didn't seem like they were here to arrest a student. It was more like they were dealing with a murderer. Father Yang's mouth curved into a smile. This was really a turn of events. Governor Lu became serious. This situation didn't make sense at all. Could it be that this was a plot against him? People in the officialdom had to be careful at every step. It was better to be safe than sorry, so he couldn't be careless at all times. "You want to arrest him? What's the matter?" Commissioner Hong hesitated for a moment, but still said truthfully, "He killed someone." "Killed someone?" Governor Lu was shocked. He is still a student. How could he kill someone? Commissioner Hong really had the urge to find a hole to hide in. But in the face of the governor's questioning, he could only continue to say, "He killed Lei Ming and his son, as well as Tian Shuji's guests." When Governor Lu heard this, his eyes widened. He also heard a little about yesterday's incident, especially the murder case of Tian Shuji, which cast a shadow over the entire provincial party committee's compound. Many people were talking about it. He was also guessing who was so fierce that he dared to kill Tian Shuji's family. This person was too bold. Last night, he also specially called Tian Shuji to ask about it. But he didn't interfere in this matter. After all, this might involve Tian Shuji's private affairs. It would be taboo to ask too much. Tian Shuji and he were the second in command of the province. They appeared to be united, but were divided at heart. There was a lot of friction between them, but they were all controlled to a certain extent. Secretary Tian was a local tyrant. He was a local who had climbed up the ranks step by step. On the other hand, Governor Lu was an airborne tyrant. Airborne tyrants did not have as many resources as local tyrants. However, in the past few years, he had been diligent in his governance and had made the situation turn for the better. Many cadres had been recruited by him, which showed his willpower and strength. When Governor Lu heard that Tang Zheng killed these people, he subconsciously thought that it must be a conspiracy against him. Moreover, arresting people in front of him was completely to force him to be on the same side with Tang Zheng. It would make people think that all of this was ordered by him. Even if yellow mud fell from the crotch of one's pants, it was still shit. If the leaders above knew that he ordered others to commit murder, this kind of means would be the most taboo in the officialdom. In the struggle for power, there were back and forth, and there were open spears and hidden arrows. This was the rule of the game. But if someone wanted to assassinate someone, it would be breaking the rules and would be kicked out. Governor Lu's nerves immediately tensed up. His eyes were shining. He stared at Commissioner Hong and asked in a deep voice, "Do you have evidence?" "Yes, we are all witnesses." Commissioner Hong pointed to himself and then to the subordinates beside him. "We saw him kill Lei Ming with our own eyes yesterday." At this point, it was useless to deny it, so Commissioner Hong simply admitted it. Hiss. Governor Lu really wanted to suck in a breath of cold air. With so many witnesses, it was a done deal. Could it be that Tang Zheng really killed Lei Ming and his son? Was this a conspiracy? He was just a student. How could he kill people? Was someone trying to frame him? But he killed people. How could he act as if nothing had happened? This was too abnormal. Oh no, could it be that he deliberately got close to Qingmei and then got involved with me before killing people? This is equivalent to dragging me down with him. He didn't dare to think about it anymore. If it was really like this, then all of this was a big plot. It started with his daughter, and then led him step by step to jump into it. Killing Lei Ming was considered a small matter. The key was that he killed Tian Shuji's guest. This was a big matter. It could be said that Tang Zheng originally wanted to kill Tian Shuji, but he just killed the guest by mistake. Or his target was the guest. He had asked Tian Shuji out to talk about business last night. Didn't this give him a great opportunity to make his move? Therefore, it could be said that he was cooperating with Tang Zheng to commit murder. Moreover, last night, wasn't it his daughter who suggested that he ask Tian Shuji out? This was definitely Tang Zheng's idea. Shua. Governor Lu's back immediately broke out in a cold sweat. His hands under the table couldn't help but tremble. He thought that this was definitely a conspiracy. A huge conspiracy. Who knew how long this had been planned? It was too vicious. He suddenly turned his head to look at Tang Zheng. He saw that his face was expressionless and extremely calm. If a normal person were to face this kind of situation, they would have already pissed their pants. However, he was completely unaffected. This was too abnormal. There was only one explanation, and that was that he was the one who set this up. He knew that this was all a conspiracy, so he had nothing to fear. Such a ruthless heart at such a young age. Governor Lu felt that Tang Zheng was like a poisonous snake that was currently spitting out its scarlet tongue. He grabbed his daughter and pulled her to his side, then protected her. He gnashed his teeth as he looked at Tang Zheng and said, "Tang Zheng, I never thought that you would be so sinister." Tang Zheng froze for a moment. He didn't know what Governor Lu's words meant, and was at a loss for what to do. "Stop acting." Governor Lu angrily shouted. Lu Qingmei looked at her father in confusion and said, "What are you saying? Don't listen to their nonsense." "Qingmei, don't say anything. I'll handle this," Governor Lu solemnly said. Lu Qingmei fiercely broke free from her father's hand and grabbed onto Tang Zheng's arm. She glared at the group of police and said, "With me here, no one can take him away." Commissioner Hong awkwardly looked at Governor Lu. The governor's daughter was stopping him, so what should he do? He scratched his head but couldn't think of a way. He could only be a yes man and tremble as he said, "Governor Lu, this is an order personally issued by Tian Shuji." Governor Lu's entire body seemed to have been drained of energy. Since it was personally issued by Tian Shuji, then it was possible that the mastermind was him. This was directly cutting off his political life. How ruthless. If he protected Tang Zheng, then the other's plot would be even more complete, and he would be even more suspicious. As a result, he immediately stood up and said without hesitation, "No matter who it is, if they violate the law, then they must be severely punished. Arrest them." Commissioner Hong acted as if he had been granted amnesty. As long as Governor Lu didn't interfere, then everything would be easy to handle. This time he came prepared. No matter how powerful Tang Zheng was, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. "I want to see who dares." Lu Qingmei angrily roared as she protected Tang Zheng. Commissioner Hong and the others immediately stopped and looked awkwardly at Governor Lu. Governor Lu's heart was as cold as ice. His silly daughter still didn't know that she had been deceived. The more she resisted, the more she would fall into the other's trap. He made a prompt decision and shouted, "Arrest them." "Tang Zheng, we all know that you are very powerful. If you want to resist, you can try. Look outside the window." Commissioner Hong was afraid that Tang Zheng would explode and hurt people, so he threatened. Tang Zheng walked to the window. The street was already blocked by the armed police. There were also snipers on the distant buildings. Clearly, they were guarding against him in case he resisted and escaped. Tang Zheng chuckled. "They are really well prepared." "Of course, so you should obediently allow yourself to be arrested," Commissioner Hong said proudly. "Tang Zheng, let's rush out. They don't have good intentions," Lu Qingmei said in a low voice. He knew that Tang Zheng was indeed related to this matter, so he was afraid that he would be tortured or even locked up after being caught. As the saying goes, concern leads to confusion. How could there be a prison in this world that could hold Tang Zheng? Tang Zheng smiled and patted her hand, saying, "This must be a misunderstanding. Since they want to catch me, then I will accompany them." Seeing that Tang Zheng was full of confidence, Lu Qingmei was startled. She knew that he would never fight a battle that he wasn't confident in, so he definitely wouldn't shoot without thinking. Chapter 569. Tang Zheng was brought out of the restaurant. The restaurant had already been cleared out and was filled with special police officers. Tang Zheng leisurely got into the police car and sped away. Lu Qingmei immediately said to her father, who had an uncertain expression on his face, "You must save Tang Zheng." Governor Lu declined to comment. After greeting Father Zhao, he dragged his daughter and left. After a while, when he returned home, he let out a long sigh. He solemnly looked at his daughter and said, "Qingmei, don't get involved in this matter. The water is too deep." Lu Qingmei was at a loss and asked, "What water is too deep?" "I suspect that Tang Zheng is a chess piece sent by someone to frame me. You have been tricked by him," Governor Lu hatefully said. The opponent was too cunning. Lu Qingmei was slightly startled. She immediately shook her head like a rattledrum and denied. "You misunderstood. Tang Zheng did not trick me. This is not a conspiracy. You have fallen too deep. You are unable to see the bigger picture. But don't worry. Using this kind of conspiracy to deal with me is too simple. You must stay home for the time being. You cannot go anywhere." "No, I have to go find Tang Zheng. The police have caught him. What if they interrogate him?" Lu Qingmei stubbornly said. "Are you trying to anger me to death? This is all a conspiracy. The enemy is using Tang Zheng and you to deal with me. The political world is dangerous. You don't understand. I will go back to the study first." Governor Lu quickly went back to the study to prepare a countermeasure. Lu Qingmei bit her lips. Her eyes kept changing. Suddenly, she angrily stomped her feet and left the house. At the same time, the atmosphere in the provincial party committee's courtyard was strange. There were many armed police patrolling the courtyard, paying attention to every detail. In particular, Tian Shuji's house was surrounded by many mobile sentries and snipers in the dark to guard against possible attacks. Tian Shuji sat in his study while Commissioner Hong stood respectfully in front of him and reported the details of the arrest. When he heard that Governor Lu and Tang Zheng knew each other and even had a meal together, his eyelids twitched violently a few times and a complicated look flashed in his eyes. Seeing his reaction, Commissioner Hong's heart violently trembled a few times. He pretended to be calm and asked, "Tian Shuji, then how do we deal with Tang Zheng?" Tian Shuji pondered for a moment and said, "Deal with it strictly according to the law." "Yes, but that kid is very tight-lipped. He didn't say a word when he was in the police station. He became a mute," Commissioner Hong said awkwardly. Tian Shuji's expression turned cold as he said, "Are you police officers incompetent? If the suspect doesn't confess, you can't do anything? Moreover, you saw the crime with your own eyes. Could it be fake?" "It's definitely not fake. It's absolutely true," Commissioner Hong hurriedly guaranteed. "Then think of a way to convict him and make it an ironclad case." "Yes." Commissioner Hong understood. "But what about Governor Lu?" Tian Shuji glared at him and said, "Governor Lu is a man of principle. Why would he protect a criminal?" "Understood." Commissioner Hong left and only Tian Shuji was left in the study. His expression suddenly changed and he muttered to himself, "Last night he asked me out to talk about something. During that time, Qin Lao was assassinated. If he had nothing to do with this matter, then wouldn't it be too much of a coincidence? He was worried that I would get in touch with the Song family, so he would rather hire someone to kill me than let me succeed? Humph. You really think that you can compete with me just because you've been doing well these past few days and gathered a group of officials? You're thinking too simply. Qin Lao is dead and I can't absolve myself from the blame. But as long as I punish the murderer and push the blame to you, causing you to get involved with the powerful Song family, then I won't have to do anything. You'll have to suffer the consequences. Moreover, I can still get in touch with the Song family. It's not impossible for me to go further in the future. After sorting out his emotions, Tian Shuji took a deep breath and dialed a number. This number was given to him by Qin Lao. It was the number of the young master of the Song family, Song Yu. After a few beeps, the call went through. Hello, is this young master Song? Tian Shuji asked. It's me. Who are you? Why do you have my number? Song Yu's cold voice sounded. Hello, young master Song. I'm Tian Jiyuan. It was Qin Lao who gave me this number. Song Yu immediately remembered who this person was. He smiled and said, So it's Tian Shuji. I've heard a lot about you. Qin Lao is working at your place. Tian Shuji, please take care of him. Tian Shuji smiled bitterly in his heart. He's already dead. How can I take care of him? He hurriedly said, Young master Song, I've neglected my duty. Qin Lao was assassinated at my humble home last night. Qin Lao is dead. Song Yu was shocked. His voice suddenly rose a few octaves. How is that possible? Qin Lao was a Xiantian martial artist. How could an ordinary assassin be his opponent? It's absolutely true. The murderer is called Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng. Song Yu's heart violently beat a few times. In Wuxia, the only one who had the ability and courage to kill Qin Lao was Tang Zheng. He originally sent Qin Lao to take drastic measures to disrupt Tang Zheng's base camp. However, he didn't expect him to die so quickly. This was a slap in the face. Song Yu's breathing involuntarily quickened. Tang Zheng, you're really good. However, Song Yu did not lose his wolf, as Tang Zheng's actions were clearly a warning to the Song family. To kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Song Yu was a smart person. He thought for a moment and understood the deeper meaning. Kaka. He clenched his fist nonstop. He couldn't wait to smash Tang Zheng into meat paste. Seeing that the other party didn't respond, Tian Shuji said, We've already caught the murderer. However, I suspect that he's not the main culprit. There's someone else behind him. This person is most likely Lu Zhengqian. Lu Zhengqian? Song Yu was stunned for a moment. He instantly denied this judgment. This matter had nothing to do with Lu Zhengqian. Yes. When Qin Lao was killed, he deliberately asked me out to talk about something to create an opportunity for the assassin. Song Yu frowned. This Lu Zhengqian certainly wasn't the main culprit. However, according to Tian Jiyuan, Lu Zhengqian might not be unrelated to this matter. Song Yu couldn't do anything to Tang Zheng for the time being, but dealing with Lu Zhengqian wasn't a problem. I understand. Someone will be responsible for this. Tian Shuji was overjoyed and said, The murderer, Tang Zheng, we will not let him go. He will definitely be severely punished by the law. Song Yu disagreed in his heart. How could Tang Zheng be so easy to deal with? Since you want to deal with him, then go ahead. He didn't say much and directly hung up the phone. Tian Shuji was overjoyed. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and turned a disaster into a happy event. This was enough for Lu Zhengqian to drink a pot of wine. Lu Qingmei found Marshall and told her about Tang Zheng's capture. He anxiously said, Tang Zheng will definitely be tortured if he is captured. We have to think of a way to save him. Marshall remained calm and collected. He thought to himself that it would be better to let him suffer a bit, so that he wouldn't bite the hand that feeds him. If he really didn't want to be caught, how could the police catch him? Marshall was not too worried. As long as it was not another powerful martial artist or cultivator that dealt with Tang Zheng, he would be able to handle it with ease and would not be in any danger to his life. Lu Qingmei preemptively said, Maybe he was afraid of implicating me and my father, so he surrendered. Looking at her panicked appearance, Marshall sighed in his heart. He didn't know what kind of bewitching potion this brat gave this woman to make her so loyal. Feng Shishir was like this, and so was Lu Qingmei. If you want to save him, go and do it yourself. I don't have that kind of free time. Marshall crossed his arms and refused. Lu Qingmei was stunned for a moment, then said, How can you not save him? Marshall remained indifferent, thinking that when he was really going to die, I would naturally save him. Lu Qingmei hatefully stomped her feet and said, If you don't save him, I will save him myself. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will not hesitate. Finished speaking, she turned around and left. Police station. Tang Zheng was shackled and locked in the interrogation room. Commissioner Hong sat opposite him and personally interrogated him. This was what Tian Shuji had told him. He did not want to leave it to others. This credit was his. Moreover, he was scared by Tang Zheng yesterday. Today he could flaunt his strength and get back at him. Seeing Tang Zheng's eyes open, as if he was about to fall asleep, Commissioner Hong suddenly slammed the table and angrily shouted, "Tang Zheng, you better have a proper attitude. This is the police station, not your home. If you don't behave, I will take care of you." Tang Zheng opened his eyes and looked at the other party in ridicule and said, "Only if you don't have confidence would you shout so fiercely. Yesterday when I saw you, why didn't you dare to shout?" Commissioner Hong's face turned red. Yesterday's humiliation was brought up in front of everyone. He was unable to restrain his anger and said, "Yesterday you killed people in front of everyone. Last night you sneaked into Tian Shuji's house and committed murder. Tell me honestly, who ordered you?" Commissioner Hong understood Tian Shuji's intentions. This matter must be related to Governor Liu, so he asked this question to guide Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and said, "You think I was ordered by someone?" "Yes, obediently tell me the mastermind behind this. What if I tell you that I didn't? No, you are just a student and you dare to do such a thing? Don't think that I am an idiot and will believe your nonsense." Commissioner Hong said righteously. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "You are worse than an idiot." "You." Commissioner Hong's face turned red. "Don't think that just because someone is protecting you, you can sit back and relax. The evidence is conclusive and you cannot escape." "It seems that you still don't understand me," Tang Zheng said in ridicule. If the other party went to ordinary balance to investigate him, then he would not be so arrogant. What happened in ordinary balance was controlled to a certain extent. The ordinary balance's citizens did not know the details, and only a few local officials knew. Moreover, it was the Dragon Group and the National Security Bureau that issued the gag order. Therefore, even the Wuxia officials did not know the details and did not know Tang Zheng's background and power. "I already know enough about you, so if you obediently tell me the truth and tell me the mastermind behind this, I can ask the judge to reduce your sentence by a few years." Commissioner Hong enticed. Chapter 570. Commissioner Hong had interrogated many people, but no one was as difficult as Tang Zheng. However, he had many means, and it was not so easy to get out after entering this door. He was preparing to use his means, but one of his men opened the door and whispered a few words in his ear. His face changed slightly, and he glared at Tang Zheng fiercely and said, "I'll deal with you later." In the office, Commissioner Hong saw Lu Qingmei. He immediately squeezed out a smile and asked, "Miss Liu, why are you here? What did you do to Tang Zheng? He is suspected of murder, and we are interrogating him." Although Lu Qingmei knew that Tang Zheng did kill the man, there was a reason for it. It was clear that they came to trouble Tang Zheng first and wanted to kill him. He was just defending himself. Commissioner Hong rolled his eyes and asked, "Miss Liu, what is your relationship with Tang Zheng?" "He is my boyfriend," Lu Qingmei blurted out. Bureau Chief Hong was stunned. He knew that Lu Qingmei had already graduated from university, and Tang Zheng was only in his first year of university. The age gap was too big, so he didn't think about it in this direction before. Hearing Lu Qingmei personally say these words, he did not have any doubts. Who would foolishly claim that they were in a relationship with the suspect? However, in a flash, Commissioner Hong was overjoyed. He had been looking for the connection between Tang Zheng and Lu Zhangqian, so that he could tie the two together, but Tang Zheng had not said anything, so he had no way. Since Tang Zheng and Lu Qingmei were boyfriend and girlfriend, then he was related to Lu Zhangqian. Even if he could not find substantial evidence, he could make Lu Zhangqian suffer. This could be considered to have completed half of the task given by Tian Shuji. Commissioner Hong did not change his expression and continued, "Governor Liu also knows the relationship between you two?" "Of course he knows." Commissioner Hong smiled and said, "Then I understand, Miss Liu. Don't worry, we will definitely enforce the law." "I want to see him." Commissioner Hong hesitated and said, "Yes, but only for a while." Lu Qingmei was brought to the interrogation room. When she saw Tang Zheng was shackled, her eyes immediately turned red. She glared at Commissioner Hong and said, "You are too ruthless." Commissioner Hong smiled and said, "Tang Zheng's skills are extraordinary. We are worried that he will do something stupid. This is for his own good." Lu Qingmei coldly snorted and threw herself into Tang Zheng's hands. She groped and said, "How are you? Did they do anything to you?" Tang Zheng looked at her in astonishment. He did not expect her to run over. He quickly comforted her. "I'm fine. Don't worry. You are already like this. How can I not worry?" Suddenly she lowered her voice and said, "Originally, I wanted to ask Wu to come with me. At worst, we can escape. But that woman doesn't care about your life or death." Tang Zheng's heart warmed as he comforted her. "Silly girl. Don't do anything stupid. They can't hurt me, nor can they control me. Moreover, if you really do this, you will fall into their trap. But if I don't save you, then how can you go out? Don't worry. I have my own plans. Just watch carefully." Tang Zheng said confidently. Lu Qingmei was skeptical. "Miss Lu, it's time," Chief Hong urged when he saw the two of them whispering to each other. "Let's go back." Tang Zheng comforted her. "Then you must be careful. If someone dares to torture and extort a confession, there will not be a good result," Lu Qingmei said. Commissioner Hong's face revealed an awkward expression. Just as Lu Qingmei walked out of the police station, a car stopped in front of her. Yang Xiaoyu hurriedly got out of the car and said with concern, "Qingmei, I am relieved that you are fine. Just now, I heard from my dad what happened in the restaurant. It really gave me a fright." After Yang Xiaoyu woke up and heard about the wonderful events, it was too late for regrets. He really suffered a big loss and missed such a good show. Otherwise, he would have fiercely reprimanded Tang Zheng in front of Lu Qingmei. But now it was not bad. At least Tang Zheng's disguise had been exposed, so his chance had come again. "What are you doing here?" Lu Qingmei asked snappily. Yang Xiaoyu said excitedly, "Qingmei, I came to protect you. I didn't expect that so many things would happen in the restaurant. As soon as I woke up, I immediately came to find you. I have already said that Tang Zheng is not a good person. He is a big liar and has bad intentions towards you. Fortunately, he has been exposed and has not caused a disaster." Lu Qingmei frowned and said, "Don't talk nonsense." "How am I talking nonsense? The facts are clear. He killed someone. Not only is he a liar, this kind of person should be shot. He is too hateful," Yang Xiaoyu said with righteous indignation. But he did not notice that Lu Qingmei's face had already darkened. She angrily shouted, "Have you said enough? I am not in the mood to listen to your nonsense." Scram. Yang Xiaoyu was stunned, but immediately returned to normal and said, "Qingmei, I know you were shocked and did not think of all this. Don't worry, I will protect you in the future. No one will be able to hurt you." As he spoke, he made a gesture to hug Lu Qingmei's shoulder. He was simply courting death. Lu Qingmei was already upset, and when she saw his actions, she immediately exploded. She kicked him in the stomach, and he flew out with a whoosh. He hit the car door with a muffled bang, and like a dead fish, he softly fell to the ground, rolling his eyes and sucking in cold air. Lu Qingmei coldly snorted, and left with large strides. She could not just sit there and wait for death. She had to think of another way. After a long while, Yang Xiaoyu finally recovered and crawled up in a sorry state. He spat in the direction where Lu Qingmei disappeared and said with gritted teeth, "Lu Qingmei, what are you so arrogant for? An old cow eating young grass, a student who hasn't even grown hair has already deceived you. I don't believe that I, the flower saint, can't take you down. If you didn't have the governor as your father, I wouldn't have to pretend to be a gentleman. Humph, but just you wait. One day I will make you beg for mercy under my body." Commissioner Hong waited for Lu Qingmei to leave before excitedly reporting the new information to Tian Shuji. Tang Zheng and Lu Qingmei were actually boyfriend and girlfriend. This meant that Lu Zhengqian would not be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. The future son-in-law of the governor was actually a criminal. This was a stain on Lu Zhengqian's future. Moreover, didn't this link the two murders to Lu Zhengqian? Tian Shuji immediately ordered the case to be closed as soon as possible. Commissioner Hong understood. Although Tang Zheng did not confess, it did not matter. He still searched everywhere for evidence. After spending an entire night, he finally made a complete chain of evidence that could pin Tang Zheng to death. At dawn, Commissioner Hong came to the interrogation room with a pair of panda eyes. Tang Zheng was still handcuffed to the chair and was sleeping with his eyes closed. He did not wake up even when he heard the door open. "Humph, you can still sleep? Wait until you eat a bullet, then you can continue sleeping," Commissioner Hong coldly said. Tang Zheng slowly opened his eyes and looked at Commissioner Hong with a smile that was not a smile. He said, "I'm afraid you ate a bullet, but I didn't. I'm not going to talk to you about these useless things. I'm going to tell you that the evidence of your crime is conclusive. It will soon enter the judicial process. You're finished," Commissioner Hong proudly said. "Oh really? Of course." Bang. The door was pushed open and a person shouted in panic, "Bureau Chief, these people want to break in. I can't stop them." Commissioner Hong glared at his subordinate and squinted his eyes. He looked at the person who came in. It was a middle-aged man with an imposing appearance. One look and anyone could tell that he was not an ordinary person. "Who are you? Breaking into the police station. Do you know that this is a serious crime?" Commissioner Hong angrily shouted. The other person ignored him and directly walked in front of Tang Zheng and said, "You've worked hard. When I received your message, I immediately rushed over from Beijing." Tang Zheng smiled and nodded his head. He stood up, but the shackles on his wrists and ankles broke into pieces. He moved his muscles and bones, then shrugged his shoulders and said, "You came just in time. If you were a bit later, I would have eaten a bullet." Saying this, he looked at Commissioner Hong with ridicule. Chief Hong's expression changed drastically. Even the strongest shackles in the police station couldn't lock him down. It turned out that it wasn't that he couldn't escape from the beginning, but that he didn't expect to escape. He had a backup plan. But who was this middle-aged man in front of him? "Eat a bullet. Humph, I want to see who has the guts." The middle-aged man deliberately glanced at Commissioner Hong and said in a dignified manner. This gaze made Commissioner Hong's whole body tremble. It was too terrifying. This person's hands must have taken a lot of lives. That kind of biting, cold-killing intent could not be faked. "Who are you?" Commissioner Hong continued to ask after being ignored for so long. "You don't have the qualifications to know," the other person coldly said. "You go out for a moment. I have something to say to Tang Zheng." "This is the police station, you." Commissioner Hong was originally going to say a few words to keep up appearances, but when he saw the other person's cold eyes sweep over him as if he was looking at a dead person, he abruptly swallowed the rest of his words back down. This person was definitely someone in the government, but there was definitely no such person in Wuxia. Just now he said that he came from Beijing. Could it be that he was a high-ranking official in the central government? How could Tang Zheng have such a strong background? Commissioner Hong was full of suspicion as he dejectedly left the interrogation room. He immediately grabbed his subordinate's collar and asked, "Who is this person? He just waved his ID in front of me. I think he's from the National Security Bureau," the subordinate carefully said. "National Security Bureau?" Commissioner Hong was shocked. How did this involve the National Security Bureau? The cases under the jurisdiction of the National Security Bureau were all major events that involved national security. Moreover, they had extraordinary power. Even the police had to lower their heads in front of them. Because of the uniqueness of the National Security Bureau, their actions were usually very low-key and mysterious. Commissioner Hong had basically never dealt with them before, but he had heard a few things. The National Security Bureau was not to be trifled with. The National Security Bureau stepped in for Tang Zheng. Then the evidence that he had painstakingly collected last night would not be of much use. Chapter 571. The person who came was indeed from the National Security Bureau. He was the head of the National Security Bureau, Tian. After the person left, Tian's tense face relaxed. He looked at Tang Zheng with a smile that was not a smile and said, "You really can't be idle for even a day. It's the new year, and yet you still cause so much trouble. You really can't let people have a worry-free new year. Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders and said, You can't blame me for this. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. Hee hee, you're too big a tree, so it's easy to attract the wind. Su Tian joked. Tang Zheng helplessly spread out his hands. He did not want to cause trouble, but it was trouble that came to his door. This time's matter is not small. Not only did you kill the lay father and son in front of everyone, that Qin Lao's death should also be your doing, right? Su Tian asked. Tang Zheng smiled, which could be considered as a tacit agreement. Su Tian pointed at Tang Zheng and helplessly sighed. I suspect that even if I helped you solve your problem this time, you will definitely cause new trouble not long after. You have so little confidence in me? I have too much confidence in you. I know your ability and I know your style of doing things. That's why I came to this conclusion. Su Tian said seriously. Tang Zheng was greatly embarrassed. He laughed involuntarily and said, Then it seems that in your eyes I'm a troublemaker. 5. It's not that you're a troublemaker but that your ability is too big. You're too big a tree so you can't help but attract bees and butterflies. Su Tian said seriously. Tang Zheng carefully thought about it. Su Tian's words were not false. If he was an ordinary person then he would not have these troubles. But the key point was that he was not an ordinary person. If you encounter the same thing in the future, what will you do? Tang Zheng said without hesitation. If I meet you again, I will still do the same. Su Tian pointed at Tang Zheng and said, See, I'm right. You're that kind of person. It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. Do I have to clean up after you every time? I have a lot of things to do, so I don't have the time. When he was in the restaurant, he had secretly sent a message to Su Tian. That was why he had followed the police. Although there was no agreement between him and Su Tian, he believed that Su Tian would not sit idly by and would definitely come to rescue him. Tang Zheng was not an egomaniac. He wanted to live in ordinary balanced city and ensure that his grandfather lived a normal life. He could not simply run away and become a wanted criminal. His departure from the Lei family was a test to see the attitude of the government. Since the government had taken measures against him, it meant that his influence alone would not be able to resolve this crisis. He could escape without any effort, but what awaited him would not be a small problem. So he had to solve this problem from the source, and the National Security Bureau was the best way. Previously, when such a huge incident occurred in ordinary balanced city, the National Security Bureau and the Dragon Group could make it disappear. This storm was nothing. His guess was right. The deaths of a few people in the underworld was indeed nothing to the National Security Bureau. Although these people had the protection of the government, but in front of the National Security Bureau, that protection was like a layer of window paper. It would be broken with a single poke. It was completely useless. Su Tian did not have to come personally, but he pushed away countless work to personally meet Tang Zheng. Of course, it was not as simple as saving people. He looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze and said, I have a solution. What solution? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Su Tian took out a document and pushed it in front of Tang Zheng. He looked at him with a smile. Tang Zheng was stunned. Looking at the national emblem on the document, he frowned and asked, What does this mean? No matter what, you have killed people this time. Although the National Security Bureau has a lot of power, but to save an unrelated person, the local government will also be dissatisfied. You also know that the local government is not without power. If they report it to the higher-ups, it will be enough to make me suffer. Su Tian said. And then? Tang Zheng pointed at the document and asked. If you have an identity to protect you, then what you did will be logical. Not to mention killing a few people in the underworld. Even the local government will not be able to do anything to you. Su Tian said proudly. This was the privilege of the National Security Bureau. Tang Zheng's head moved. This privilege was too useful for him. He also knew that in the future he would encounter similar troubles. There would always be something that could be used against him. If he had this protective talisman, then it would be twice the result with half the effort. At least he would not be stuck in a stalemate with the local government. He knew that he was strong, so he did not want to be enemies with the local government. He felt that it was meaningless. It was like an adult bullying a child. It was dull and boring. This was the National Security Bureau, throwing an olive branch to him. Should he accept it or not? The Dragon Group was his enemy. Now that the National Security Bureau came out to mediate, the two sides could be considered to have reached a temporary peace. But Tang Jing knew that Xingfeng would definitely not let it go. There was no such thing as being a thief for 1,000 days. So if he had the National Security Bureau as a protective talisman, Xingfeng would not dare to act rashly for a long time. But this also had its drawbacks. If he joined the National Security Bureau, then he would be subject to the corresponding restrictions, and would not be as free as he was now. After pondering for a long time, Tang Jing asked, "What do you want me to do?" Su Yingtian's brows revealed a trace of joy. This was a dangerous move. An expert like Tang Jing would not be willing to be manipulated by others. He also did not have the intention to manipulate Tang Jing. Cooperation was a win-win choice. Become a special agent of the National Security Bureau. Help the National Security Bureau to deal with some special cases. Other than that, the National Security Bureau will not interfere with anything you do. With the National Security Bureau's protection, many things will be more convenient, such as this time. Tang Jing was silent as he weighed the pros and cons. Without a doubt, Su Yingtian's conditions were very sincere. There were not many restrictions on Tang Jing. He only wanted him to help the National Security Bureau when necessary. But for Tang Jing, he could provide a lot of convenience. In addition, after coming into contact with Su Yingtian many times, Tang Jing already had some understanding of him. Su Yingtian was much more upright than Xingfeng, and was not a shameless person who only knew how to curry favor. The National Security Bureau had an independent intelligence agency, and Tang Jing could obtain a lot of useful information from it. This was also a very important point. Su Yingtian quietly looked at Tang Jing, waiting for his decision. He was a little nervous. He had made this request after careful consideration, especially after knowing that the witch tribesmen had already appeared in the ordinary balance. The National Security Bureau had specially organized people to study the mysterious force in Tang Jing's hands. They believed that the future of this force was limitless, and that it would definitely explode with great power in the future. The expert's suggestion was that if this force could not be controlled by the National Security Bureau, then it had to be eliminated as soon as possible to avoid future troubles. However, Su Yingtian did not accept the expert's opinion. He knew the actual situation better. With Tang Jing's personality, dealing with the witch tribesman was equivalent to making an enemy out of him. The gains did not make up for the losses. This world was changing. It was no longer the original world. So many rules were slowly changing. Su Yingtian was clearly aware of this, so he did not dislike Tang Jing's identity as a cultivator. Instead, he was very interested in him. He did not know how far he could go in the future. In addition, this world was not only filled with cultivators like Tang Jing, there was also an expert like the 100 Transformation Star Lord. He was not someone that ordinary people could deal with, and even Su Yingtian did not have complete confidence in dealing with him. Therefore, roping in Tang Jing and dealing with the 100 Transformation Star Lord in the future was not a bad choice. The Western Empire had also been restless, trying to subvert the Wuxia. The National Security Bureau needed more talents, so no matter what, the advantages of recruiting Tang Jing outweighed the disadvantages. Tang Jing's eyes gradually became firm. It was obvious that he had made a decision. Su Yingtian looked at him nervously, looking forward to his answer. "Okay, I promise you." Tang Jing accepted the certificate in front of him and opened it. His photo had already been pasted. Su Yingtian felt relieved and laughed loudly. "Tang Jing, welcome to the National Security Bureau." The two of them shook each other's hands vigorously, and a satisfied smile appeared in each other's eyes. "Then let's go and solve this problem," Su Yingtian said with a smile, and walked out with Tang Jing. Commissioner Hong led many subordinates to block the door, as if he was afraid that Tang Jing would run away. Su Yingtian sneered and said, "Commissioner Hong, Tang Jing is from the National Security Bureau. You know best what kind of people Lei Ming and his son are. So you only have yourself to blame, understand? Tang Zheng has regained his freedom. He is from the National Security Bureau? Commissioner Hong's heart thumped. No matter how big the hole in his brain was, he did not think of this possibility. But Tian Shuji wanted to turn this case into an ironclad case and implicate Tang Zheng and Lu Zhangqian together. If he let him go, then wouldn't he be neglecting his duty, and all his previous efforts would go to waste? He could not bear this responsibility. No, I can't let him go just because you said so. Who are you? Do you have this right? Commissioner Hong persistently asked. Su Yingtian's face sank and said, Who am I? You have no right to know. If I say that Tang Zheng is from the National Security Bureau, then he is. If you still want to find trouble with him, then you are going against the National Security Bureau. You should think about it yourself. Commissioner Hong's heart was bitter, but he could only bite the bullet and say, but not only did he kill Lei Ming and his son, he also intended to harm Tian Shuji. Nonsense, do you have any evidence? Su Yingtian angrily shouted. Evidence? Commissioner Hong was speechless. Tang Zheng killed Qin Lao and did not leave any clues, let alone evidence. Qin Lao was different from Lei Ming and his son. After all, he was a member of the Song family. Although everyone knew that Tang Zheng killed him, there was no evidence, and no one could do anything to Tang Zheng. Although the National Security Bureau was powerful, they still had to take into account the Song family's attitude, so they deliberately pushed this case away from Tang Zheng. This way, the Song family would not have any evidence against them and would have nothing to say. From this, it could be seen that Su Yingtian's actions were watertight. If you don't have evidence, then don't talk nonsense. Be careful, or I will sue you for slandering the National Security Bureau. Then you will have to wear the black veil hat on your head. Su Yingtian jokingly said. Commissioner Hong's face was pale, and he subconsciously covered his head as if he wanted to cover his black veil hat. It was very funny. Su Yingtian disdainfully sneered and said, Tang Zheng, let's go. Tang Zheng smiled at Commissioner Hong. Commissioner Hong, I said that this was a misunderstanding, but you didn't believe me. Now you believe me, haha. Chapter 572. The investigation and conviction of Tang Zheng came to an end, and the investigation was stopped halfway. Commissioner Hong immediately reported to Tian Shuji in fear and trepidation. Tian Shuji was furious and reprimanded Commissioner Hong for not investigating Tang Zheng's background in advance. After hanging up the phone, Tian Shuji fell into silence. Tang Zheng was a member of the National Security Bureau, which meant that Lu Zhangqian might have won the support of the National Security Bureau. This made things a bit tricky. It was impossible to find a breakthrough from Tang Zheng and involve Lu Zhangqian. However, he was not afraid of the National Security Bureau. Although it was a secret agency, it would not interfere too much with the local government. There was nothing to be afraid of. It was just that Lu Zhangqian launched an attack on him. The original balance between the two was completely broken, and a winner was bound to be determined. Lu Zhangqian, do you really think you are my opponent? Humph, your thinking is too simple. Tian Shuji sneered and said to himself. Lu Zhangqian already knew what happened in the police station. When he heard that Tang Zheng was a member of the National Security Bureau, he was really shocked. How could a college student become a member of the National Security Bureau? He wanted to ask his daughter clearly, but Lu Qingmei also did not know, so she did not know. At this moment, Lu Qingmei was ecstatic. She had already received a call from Tang Zheng, so like a gust of wind, she rushed out of the house and joined Tang Zheng. Without hesitation, she threw herself into his arms. Tang Zheng hugged her tightly, rubbed her hair, and said with a mischievous smile, In public, other people are watching. Aren't you afraid? What's there to be afraid of? Lu Qingmei used to be an ice goddess. How could she care about other people's gazes? Only in front of Tang Zheng would she reveal her emotions. This time, I was really scared to death. I didn't expect you to have such an identity. If you had said it earlier, you wouldn't have suffered so much. Hee, I wasn't one before. Didn't I just join by coincidence? Just joined? Lu Qingmei was shocked. She was the son of an official and had heard of the National Security Bureau. It was not a place that just anyone could join. However, her beloved had such an ability. She was happy from the bottom of her heart. Cough. Suddenly, Su Yingtian coughed and broke the sweet two people's world. Lu Qingmei raised her head to take a look. In the blink of an eye, she was able to determine that the other party was an official. This was a judgment that she had trained since childhood. Miss Lu, I still have some matters to discuss with you, Su Yingtian said. No problem. I'll wait for you over there. You guys can talk. Lu Qingmei understood and walked away. The National Security Bureau was a secret organization. There were many things that outsiders could not know. Su Yingtian smiled and joked. Tang Zheng, your problems are too messy. According to what I know, you still have a girlfriend. This is like stepping on two boats. Tang Zheng's expression did not change as he said. The National Security Bureau is also in charge of this? I don't have that kind of free time. Su Yingtian gradually retracted his smile and said seriously. After leaving Jade Sand, I will directly go to the northeast. The information shows that there is a problem there. I just want to tell you that the world is becoming more and more chaotic. Moreover, it is said that many things have happened in the Marshall Organization. But as for the specifics, I think that Marshall by your side should know better. Tang Zheng's heart moved. The National Security Bureau's information was really powerful. They even knew about the Marshall Organization. The internal strife in the Marshall Organization should mean that they have no time to deal with you for the time being. However, you can't be careless, especially since there is still 100 changes Star-Lord in the 10,000 huge mountains. To you and me, this person is a big problem. Su Yingtian's brows unconsciously knitted even tighter. Tang Zheng obviously did not forget about the 100 changes Star-Lord. This person's cultivation was extremely high and his mood was unpredictable. No one could think of what he was thinking, especially when the demon god had also fallen into his hands. The demon god was extremely cunning and wanted the demon clan to return. If the demon god was not dead, then he would definitely think of a way to let the demon clan return. In addition, Tang Zheng already had 66 pieces of heaven and earth black stone in his hands, and there were 33 pieces left. He did not know how many were hidden under the imperial city, which meant that he had to quickly gather 99 pieces of heaven and earth black stone in case he needed them. However, the heaven and earth black stone could only be encountered by chance and not sought. Director Su, I have a presumptuous request. Oh, what is it? The National Security Bureau's intelligence network is very developed. If you discover that there are many cases of people going missing, please tell me. Tang Zheng had always been thinking about the Mountain River blood sacrifice of the demon clan. If the demon god wanted to use this great technique to let the demon clan return, he would have to gather tens of thousands of people. This was not a small number, so he asked the National Security Bureau to pay attention to the disappearance of people. Su Yingtian looked at him suspiciously and asked, Missing persons case? What's the use? You'll know when the time comes. Tang Zheng was not sure if the demon god was still alive in the human world, so he did not dare to guarantee that someone would use this formation. Su Yingtian did not ask further and nodded. I will arrange it. As for the dragon group, I have already met Xingfeng. He will be safe for the time being. Thank you. Goodbye. Su Yingtian left. Lu Qingmei held on to Tang Zheng's arm as they walked through the streets, looking no different from other couples. Her face was filled with a happy smile as she said, Yesterday, your performance was great. You completely extinguished Yang Xiaoyu's arrogance. I'm really happy. But in the end I was taken away by the police. I'm afraid the Yang family will be secretly happy. Humph, aren't you safe and sound today? Let's see how they will be secretly happy. Lu Qingmei said unconcernedly. Ring ring ring. Suddenly Lu Qingmei's phone rang. My dad? Lu Qingmei's face slightly changed. Answer it. What's the matter? Lu Qingmei asked with an unhappy face. Are you with Tang Zheng? Yes. Lu Qingmei looked at Tang Zheng and admitted. Where are you? I'm coming to find you. Lu Zhangqian urgently said. Lu Qingmei frowned. She knew that her father didn't like Tang Zheng, but she didn't care. Her relationship with her father wasn't good to begin with. This was her personal matter, so there was no need to ask his opinion. I have something to talk to him about. Lu Zhangqian was afraid that his daughter would refuse, so he quickly added. Lu Qingmei raised her head and looked at Tang Zheng. Seeing him nod, she reluctantly said, "Okay then." After giving the address and hanging up the phone, Lu Qingmei's two beautiful eyebrows twisted and said, "I don't know what he's here for." Tang Zheng faintly smiled. "Maybe he wants to denounce me for kidnapping his daughter." Half an hour later, in a tea-house private room, the three people sat together. Lu Zhangqian looked at Tang Zheng, as if he wanted to see through him from head to toe. After a while he said, "Tang Zheng, how come you're a member of the National Security Bureau?" "It's just a coincidence," Tang Zheng calmly said. Coincidence? Lu Zhangqian didn't believe in coincidence. Lei Ming and his son, as well as Tian Shuji's guests, were you the one who killed them? Tang Zheng smiled. He didn't admit or deny it. Lu Zhangqian guessed the answer. His face suddenly changed and he seriously said, "You're a member of the National Security Bureau at such a young age. It's not appropriate for you to do these things. Moreover, you're still together with Qingmei. Won't this bring her trouble?" "I have the ability to protect Qingmei." "What ability do you have? Moreover, there's a limit to how strong an individual is. I won't allow you to be with her," Lu Zhangqian said resolutely. He was very clear about the dangers of the National Security Bureau. Don't look at the boundless glory of the ordinary days. At critical times, they would sacrifice a lot. Lu Zhangqian didn't want his daughter to be in fear all day long. "This is between me and Tang Zheng. You have no right to interfere," Lu Qingmei retorted. "I'm your father. Of course, I have the right to interfere." The mother and daughter stared at each other. They both insisted on their own views, and were incomparably stubborn. "I'll say a few words. Qingmei and I are together. We won't be separated because of anyone's interference," Tang Zheng firmly said. "You don't have the right to speak here," Lu Zhangqian angrily said. "Moreover, your actions this time. No one knows whether or not there's a mastermind behind it. As for what your goal is, it's still uncertain. In particular, I suspect that your motives for contacting Qingmei are impure." Impure motives? Tang Zheng was angry and amused at the same time. Lu Qingmei was also angry and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Tang Zheng and I are in love with each other. As for Yang Xiaoyu, who you introduced yesterday, you heard it yourself. What kind of person is he? So in the future, you don't have to worry about this. I can tell you clearly that I have absolutely no other motives for being with Qingmei. I just want to be with her," Tang Zheng said. "I've seen many people like you. I'm not old yet. Moreover, although you were lucky enough to escape this time, there's no guarantee that you'll be so lucky next time. So I absolutely won't hand my daughter over to an unreliable person like you. Qingmei, let's go back," Lu Zhangqian angrily said. "I'm not going back." Lu Qingmei stubbornly raised her neck and hugged Tang Zheng's arm. "You can't separate us. Tang Zheng, let's go." After saying that, she dragged Tang Zheng out of the tea house. Lu Zhangqian was so angry that he almost stomped his feet. At first he guessed that this was a conspiracy against him. But now that Tang Zheng was a member of the National Security Bureau, the possibility of a conspiracy was very small. But because of this matter, his relationship with Tian Shuji became more and more heated. He was afraid that there would be more confrontations in the future. At this time, he didn't want to be distracted by his daughter's matter. He wanted to cut the Gordian knot and kick Tang Zheng out. But his daughter and Tang Zheng's attitude was beyond his expectations, leaving him, a provincial governor, at his wit's end. Lu Qingmei angrily dragged Tang Zheng down the street before calming down a little and said, "What qualifications does he have to interfere with my life? At first, for his own future, he didn't care about my mother. He didn't even see her for the last time. But now he's trying to dictate my life." Tang Zheng patted her shoulder and comforted her. Perhaps he has his own difficulties. He could be firm, but when he was alone with Lu Qingmei, he couldn't fan the flames. After all, they were father and daughter. They were related by blood. No matter what, Lu Zhangqian's starting point was at least concerned about Lu Qingmei. Tang Zheng was a reasonable person. Of course he understood this point. So he comforted her for a moment. When her mood finally calmed down, he said, Wuxia's matter has been resolved. I'm going back to ordinary balance. In a few days, I'll return to Beijing. At that time we'll meet again. Chapter 573. Ordinary Balance. Tang Zheng and Marshall had already returned. Lin Hu and Fire Phoenix hurriedly ran over to see him, especially when Fire Phoenix saw Tang Zheng. She couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. She also didn't expect Tang Zheng's counterattack to be so swift and decisive, like a thunderbolt. This caused the underground world of the surrounding counties to be shaken. Many people tried to find out who this fierce person was. In the end, when they heard that it was Chang Heng's original boss who did this, they all turned pale with fright and broke out in cold sweat. Many of them had already secretly colluded with Lei Ming, preparing to find time to occupy Ordinary Balance's empty territory after the new year. But now that Tang Zheng had displayed his strength, no one dared to have any ideas. On the contrary, many people were afraid that Tang Zheng would also give them a thunderous blow and send them to the underground to accompany Lei Ming. Therefore, in the past 2 days, many people wanted to visit Tang Zheng with their connections, and brought many valuable gifts. However, Tang Zheng was not here, so they could only look for Lin Hu and Fire Phoenix, so the two of them were so busy that their feet did not touch the ground. When Tang Zheng heard this, he did not feel too strongly. He and these people were no longer in the same world, so there was no need for them to interact too much. He repeatedly told Lin Hu and Fire Phoenix to leave, and also strictly ordered their forces not to take half a step into Ordinary Balance. Otherwise, Lei Ming would be their example. Tang Zheng wanted to make the underground world disappear from Ordinary Balance. This was his hometown, and he did not wish for various forces to stay here. In the next few days, he continuously refined Dragon Yuan Dan, and distributed them to the Witch Clan warriors, Lin Hu and Fire Phoenix. Their progress in strength was too slow, so they needed the help of pills. In addition, as his pill refining skills became more and more refined, the quality of the Dragon Yuan Dan he refined became better and better. After everyone consumed the Dragon Yuan Dan, their cultivation increased by leaps and bounds, especially Fang Shishir. Under Tang Zheng's guidance, her cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. In just a short 10 days of the first month, her cultivation had already reached the 8th grade of the foundation establishment stage. In time, she would be able to break through to the fasting period. At that time, her combat strength would rise sharply, and she would be able to protect herself even if she were to study abroad alone. But happy times were always short-lived. Winter vacation was coming to an end. After sending Fang Shishir on the plane, Tang Zheng was also preparing to return to Beijing. The Witch Tribe warriors had settled down in a newly established Golden Shield security company, which was owned by Tang Zheng. His future business was not small, so he needed people he could trust to be his security guards. During normal times, they would be security guards, but during wartime they would be warriors. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. These security guards were stationed in various clubs and other industries. They gradually became familiar with this new society and were like fish in water. As for the business side of things, there was already some progress. Mu Hongyan was negotiating with a manufacturing company that was on the verge of bankruptcy, preparing to acquire it. Tang Zheng had already contacted the King of Medicine and hired him as a consultant for the new pharmaceutical company. He would also prepare new drugs for the manufacturing company and open up the market in one fell swoop. Fire Phoenix and Fang Chonggua's real estate companies had been merged. Fang Chonggua personally rushed to Beijing to be responsible for acquiring a piece of land and building his group's headquarters, which also included the group's 5-star hotel. The entertainment company had also been set up. Aimi had already taken Linger to Beijing. Some time ago, Linger had been exposed on the internet, and under the promotion of the promoter, she had gained a certain amount of attention. Next, Aimi also tailored a lot of promotion methods for her. In short, at all costs, Linger would be famous all over the country in the shortest time. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, was relaxed. Every day, he would refine pills and cultivate. However, he would soon return to Beijing, and his carefree days would come to an end. After returning to Beijing, various forces would gather, and he did not know what would be waiting for him. However, Tang Zheng always had a knot in his head. That was, the Ghost Realm sent troops to find his grandfather last time. After they were destroyed by him, the other side seemed to have ceased all activities. He was worried that after he left, the Ghost Realm would make a comeback. Without his protection, his grandfather would be in danger. Regarding the Ghost Realm, he found an opportunity to consult Tian Chanzi, which made Tian Chanzi very angry. He did not know that in order to raise money, Tang Zheng actually refined so many life-continuing pills, which alarmed the Ghost Realm. Tian Chanzi scolded him for asking for it. Tang Zheng was helpless. At the beginning, Tian Chanzi did not say that the life-continuing pills would cause such a big reaction. Otherwise, he would not have refined so many life-continuing pills, and even auctioned them off. But now that things had come to this, the only thing he could do was to find a solution. Tian Chanzi was experienced and knowledgeable, and he really found a way to solve this problem. That was to use a concealment technique to deceive the eyes of the Ghost Realm people, so that they would not be able to track the old man's whereabouts. This way, even if they wanted to find trouble, it would be useless. After Tian Chanzi's long-distance teaching, Tang Zheng finally got his wish and used it on the old man. From then on, it would not be easy for the Ghost Realm to find him. Moreover, Tang Zheng did not forget about Nana. He also used this technique on her to prevent the Ghost Realm people from finding her. However, Tian Chanzi warned Tang Zheng that the Ghost Realm would definitely not let this matter go. Especially after losing so many soldiers, the Ghost Realm was humiliated. So he told Tang Zheng to be careful. The next time he was found by the Ghost Realm people, it would definitely not be as easy to escape as the previous times. In the capital, Tang Zheng, Wu Huangziang, as well as Gui Qiansui and Xiaobai got off the plane together. This time, he specially brought Huang Ziang with him to guard against possible dangers. As for Xiaobai, it was still lazily lying on Gui Qiansui's back with its round belly. After settling Huang Ziang and the two pets, Tang Zheng and Wu went straight to school. Yanqing University, there were students everywhere returning to school. The campus that had been quiet for a long time was once again full of vitality. In dormitory 502, Wang Shiji had already arrived. Seeing Tang Zheng come in, he warmly greeted him. A bag of local specialties was stuffed into Tang Zheng's arms and said honestly, "It's made in my home. Try it." "You're carrying so many bags, aren't you tired?" "What's so tiring about it? Even the work at home is more than this." Wang Shiji was thin, but he was very strong. Not long later, Zhou Yan also carried his suitcase into the house and said, "OL3, when I saw the beauty downstairs, I knew you were here." "Beauty? Which beauty?" Wang Shiji immediately ran to the window to take a look. "Wow, so it's this beauty. OL3, the speed at which you change beauties is even faster than the speed at which we change clothes." "Yeah, tell me honestly, did you have any relationship with this beauty that goes beyond friendship?" Zhou Yan teased with an evil smile. Tang Zheng smiled weakly and said, "Am I that kind of person?" Wang Shiji and Zhou Yan nodded at the same time. "That's right." Tang Zheng was speechless. Could it be that his performance was too obvious and he was seen through with a single glance? "Haha, look, we guessed it right. OL3, you're really too unkind. All the beauties in the world have been ruined by you. What else can we do?" Zhou Yan complained. "Don't just talk about me. What about you and Li Fangfei? Don't tell me that nothing happened? If he chased after you closely, he would have already taken down this beachhead of yours." Tang Zheng countered. Zhou Yan revealed a look of surprise and quickly changed the topic. "OL3, the results of the last final exam came out long ago. I have already asked around. You are the first in our profession. You are really not human. You don't even attend classes. You actually got first place. I even want to break open your head to see what's the difference between the structure inside and ours." Wang Shiji exclaimed in surprise and said, "OL3, you must treat us to a meal. This is the unanimous decision of all the members of the dorm." "Yes, boss is wise." Zhou Yan raised his hands in agreement. "Not everyone is here. How can it be a unanimous decision of the dorm?" Tang Zheng joked. "I'm the boss, so I'll decide on behalf of the second brother." Wang Shiji patted his chest and said, "Oh right, why isn't OL2 here yet? Don't tell me some village girl stole his bride at home and forgot about him." Tang Zheng said, "With OL2's nature, that's really possible. Boss, hurry up and call OL2 and drag him out of the gentle village." Zhou Yan said in agreement. Wang Shiji dialed Sinosaurus's number, and after a few rings it finally connected, but it was not Sinosaurus's voice, but a woman's sobbing voice. It was actually Sinosaurus's mother. When the three of them heard the crying, their hearts couldn't help but tighten, especially Tang Zheng, who had an ominous premonition in his heart. This premonition was quickly confirmed. Mother Doe said that Sinosaurus was sick, but the hospital couldn't find out why. His body was getting worse and worse, and he was getting thinner day by day. The hospital had even issued a notice of critical illness. The three of them felt a chill in their hearts. They felt that it was inconceivable. OL2 was big and tall, and his body was stronger than an ox. How could his life be in danger after not seeing him for more than 10 days? After comforting her with a few words, they hurriedly asked about the specific situation. Mother Doe cried and said, "The hospital was helpless, so we went to ask the witch to diagnose him to see if he had encountered something unclean. The witch actually said that he was possessed, but the witch's exorcism failed. The witch almost died and was scared away. My poor son. How could you be like this?" Mother Doe's heart-wrenching cries made the three of them feel as if a boulder was pressing down on their hearts. The joy of their reunion immediately disappeared. After hanging up the phone, the three of them were unable to calm down for a long time. They looked at each other speechlessly. After a long time, Zhou Yan said, "OL-san, your martial arts are powerful. Do you think there's really such a thing as being possessed in this world? There are many mysterious things in this world that science can't explain. The matter of being possessed is not nonsense." Tang Zheng said seriously. Wang Shiji's face stiffened and he quickly said, "Then what about OL2? Are we just going to watch him like this?" The three of them couldn't help but think of the tall image of Sinosaurus. Sinosaurus was forthright, outspoken, and righteous. Although they had only been together for half a year, they already had a deep friendship with each other. Wang Shiji and Zhou Yan looked at Tang Zheng at the same time. Chapter 574. Tang Zheng frowned, pondered for a while and said, "I'll go to the second brother's house to see if I can help." "We'll go too," the other two said in unison without hesitation. Tang Zheng shook his head. "You left as soon as school started. The academy will definitely have an opinion. I'll go to Professor Qi Shaowen to ask for leave, it's more convenient." Both of them knew about Tang Zheng's special identity and understood that what he said was reasonable. But their dorm brother's life was hanging by a thread, which still made their hearts involuntarily tighten. Tang Zheng, however, had another idea. Sinosaurus had said before that there was a mysterious shaman technique in his hometown. Presumably, the witch that Mother Doe spoke of was a shaman. According to what Do Long said, the shaman had a certain level of magic, but Do Long was possessed, and even the shaman was scared away, so there was a high chance that this was true. Therefore, seeing that Sinosaurus was very likely to be in danger, he was not afraid, but if he did not avoid it, the two of them would be safe and sound. "Third brother, then I'll leave it to you this time. If you need anything, just let us know. Second brother is our brother, we absolutely can't let anything happen to him," Zhou Yan said solemnly. Tang Zheng nodded heavily, turned around and left the dorm. Seeing him in a hurry, Wu looked at him curiously and asked, "What happened?" "I'm going to the northeast right now." Tang Zheng's feet were like the wind. "Northeast?" Wu's eyes widened in surprise. Tang Zheng stopped a taxi and went straight to the airport while calling Professor Qi to ask for leave. He then called Lu Qingmei and asked her to take care of Xiao Bai and Gue Qiansui at his place. As for Huang Xiang, he did not need to worry about him as he was cultivating, and did not need to worry about starving to death. At the airport, the two of them happened to meet a flight to the northeast. As soon as they got off the plane, Yi Dingdong's call came. The two of them originally agreed to meet at school today, but Tang Zheng stood them up. When she heard that Tang Zheng had already boarded the plane to the northeast, Yi Dingdong quickly reminded Tang Zheng to be careful. She heard that the Northeast was not very peaceful recently. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. At this time, the air stewardess reminded the passengers to turn off their phones. Tang Zheng didn't have time to say more. Sitting in the roaring airplane, he looked at the clouds outside the window and fell into deep thought. What happened in the Northeast? Su Yingtian also went to the Northeast. It seemed that something had really happened. No matter what, he was only going to save Sinosaurus, so there shouldn't be any problems. When the plane landed, it was already night time. The two of them hurriedly got off the plane and contacted Sinosaurus's mother. The other party was very surprised that his son's classmate had arrived so quickly. He kept thanking him, but at the same time he informed Tang Zheng of a new situation. Sinosaurus was not in the city, but in his hometown in the countryside. The hospital sentenced Sinosaurus to death. His parents were unwilling, so they took him to his hometown in the countryside to seek help from the shaman. Sinosaurus asked for the detailed address. It was a remote village in the north. Most people would not know. Tang Zheng asked many taxi drivers, but they also did not know. Tang Zheng had no choice. After asking for the general direction, he said to Marshall, "Time is tight. I have decided not to go. You can stay in the city and find a place to stay." Marshall rolled his eyes and said, "You want to get rid of me? How is that possible? Wherever you go, of course I will go." "Then let's compete to see who's faster. Let's compete. Who's afraid of who?" Marshall raised his eyebrows and said fearlessly, "Whiz, whiz." 2 gusts of wind blew. The two of them pulled out 2 long afterimages under the night sky and disappeared from their original spot. True qi circulated. Tang Zheng felt an endless amount of energy fill his 8 extraordinary meridians, and wind blew under his feet. Marshall circulated his inner strength, and the surging energy continuously drove his body forward. The two of them passed through the city, suburbs, fields, lakes, and mountains. The road became more and more difficult to walk on. The surroundings became more and more desolate. The ground was gradually covered by snow. The two of them only left a shallow footprint on the snow. In the middle of the night, the two of them saw an endless mountain in the distance. It was wrapped in silver and a beautiful world of ice, and snow was vividly displayed in front of the two of them. At the foot of the mountain, there were scattered little lights, decorating the world of ice and snow, making it even more beautiful. According to Mother Doe's description, Tang Zheng observed for a moment and confirmed that this was the village she was talking about. He said in surprise, "We're here." Martial Qi was chaotic, obviously not like Tang Zheng, who was fine. Without a doubt, although the two of them arrived at the same time, Tang Zheng was better. Tang Zheng was not in the mood to enjoy the joy of victory. He looked up and saw that a house was brightly lit, and there was also a lot of noise coming from it. It must be that family. Tang Zheng quickly walked over, and from afar he could hear the sound of quarreling. "Old Doe, don't be stubborn. Your grandson is already like this." Even the shaman was scared away. He must have been possessed by a very powerful evil spirit. Even the gods can't save him. That's right, an evil spirit has possessed him. This will implicate our entire village. Hurry up and let him go back to his home. Don't let us be unlucky. Right, the shaman has spoken. We must expel him. Otherwise, our village will never have a day of peace in the future. A group of people surrounded an old man with a face full of wrinkles, talking at the same time. The old man held a pipe in his mouth and smoked. Wisps of green smoke rose and covered his eyes, but the anxiety in his eyes was unreservedly emitted through the smoke. "Old Doe, don't cause trouble for everyone because of yourself. This is too selfish. If you don't do it, then we'll do it for you." Seeing that the other party did not react, some people started to jeer. There were many people who responded, looking at the old man with red faces. Bang! Suddenly, the door was kicked open and a tall and sturdy man rushed out. His eyes stared at the crowd like a tiger looking to devour its prey. The man roared, "Who dares to touch my son? This old man will fight it out with him." The person at the front was so scared that he took a step back. He put on a strong front and said, "Do Jiang, who are you trying to scare? We're not scared. This is everyone's decision. We can't follow your family's bad luck." "That's right, It's your Dou family's bad luck that provoked an evil spirit. Why do you want us to follow you? The man's face turned red and his eyes bulged as if they were about to burst out. He fiercely stared at the group of people and said, "Can you be any more heartless? My father helped you so much before. Is this how you repay him?" "Who asked him to help? He was willing. We didn't force him," someone retorted. "Shut up," Old Man Dou shouted in a low voice. It was like a clap of thunder, and all the quarrels came to an abrupt end. Old Man Dou knocked his pipe on the stairs a few times, and threw away the ashes. He then slowly stood up. There was no doubt that the Dou family's genes were very strong. They were all tall and sturdy. Even though Old Man Dou's back was a little hunched, he was still tall and strong. He swept his eyes over the crowd and lightly said, "This is my home. My grandson can stay as long as he wants. No one can say anything. If you are not convinced, then feel free to come at me, Old Dou. My hunting rifle has not tasted blood for many years, and I was just worrying about whose blood I should use." Many people sucked in a breath of cold air. They seemed to remember Old Man Dou's valiant and heroic appearance as they cowered and retreated. "Old Man Dou, now that you've broken the law, I don't believe you dare to kill." "Humph, for my grandson. Even if the Heavenly King is here, I will still kill without hesitation." Old Man Dou glared at them, scaring them so much that they staggered and almost fell on their butts in the snow. Let's go. Let's go find the shaman." The crowd was at their wits' end. They clenched their teeth and retreated. Tang Zheng and Marshall looked at this scene in a daze. There was no doubt that Old Man Dou was Sinosaurus's grandfather. As for Dou Jiang, he was definitely his father. He never thought that this pair of father and son would be so domineering and mighty. Especially Old Man Dou. Although he was old, Tang Zheng could feel a true killing intent from him. Tang Zheng did not doubt that he would really dare to kill someone. He was right. Old Man Dou was someone who had been on the battlefield and had truly seen blood. Moreover, he was a hunter in this forest. Of course he would have a killing intent. When the other villagers left, Tang Zheng and Marshall appeared. Old Man Dou and Marshall's pupils constricted as they stared at the two. There was no doubt that in this kind of semi-enclosed village, strangers were too eye-catching. "Who are you two?" Sinosaurus asked cautiously. The old man did not trust strangers too much. "Old man, I am Sinosaurus's classmate. I heard that he was sick, so I came to visit him," Tang Zheng said calmly. Old Man Dou raised his white eyebrows, looked at Tang Zheng in astonishment and said, "Are you really my grandson's classmate?" At this moment, the door opened and a middle-aged woman walked out. She said, "I recognize your voice. Are you the student who called me during the day? My son's classmate?" "Auntie, it's me. Oh, you really came. So fast. Didn't you say you just arrived in the city?" Mother Dou was clearly surprised by the speed of Tang Zheng and Marshall. Tang Zheng did not explain further, and said, "Let me see how Sinosaurus is doing first, is that okay? Please come in, please come in." The Dou family immediately greeted. Old Man Dou and his son also changed their attitude. Sinosaurus's classmate came from far away to visit. This friendship formed a sharp contrast with the attitude of the villagers, which finally made them feel a bit of warmth in their hearts. "Sai, it's so cold. You must be freezing and hungry. I'll go cook for you." Mother Dou wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and went into the kitchen. Tang Zheng came to Sinosaurus's room. There was a Kong burning in the room, and it felt very warm. Sinosaurus was lying on the bed with his eyes closed, as if he was in a vegetative state. "We never thought that in a short period of 10 days, he would become like this. The heavens are too cruel," Dou Jiang said with a pained heart. Old Man Dou couldn't help but place his pipe in his mouth, and he had a bitter expression on his face. "How did Sinosaurus become like this?" "We don't know either. He suddenly fainted and then lost consciousness," Dou Jiang said. Chapter 575. Tang Zheng let out a cry of surprise. Strange, Sinosaurus had an extremely powerful force in his body that could actually shake off his true energy. What exactly was in Sinosaurus's body that was so powerful? Tang Zheng pondered for a moment, and concluded that this was definitely not an ordinary case of being possessed. In the past, when Li Hongqing was infected by the evil energy in the 1,000-year blood jade, her symptoms were completely different. That was a true case of being possessed. However, the energy in Sinosaurus's body was much more powerful than that of the 1,000-year blood jade. Evil, I don't believe that I can't find out the reason. Tang Zheng was still trying to compete. He didn't believe that he couldn't deal with the energy in Sinosaurus's body. Circulating his energy, his true energy surged. Bang! Tang Zheng was forced back a step, while Sinosaurus was sent flying into the corner of the brick bed. This movement was quite loud and gave the others a fright. The Dou father and son revealed panicked expressions and hurriedly asked, "What are you doing?" Tang Zheng frowned and didn't answer. Instead he asked, "How did Sinosaurus become like this?" Tang Zheng's serious expression frightened the two. They looked at Tang Zheng in bewilderment. At this moment, the powerful aura emitted from Tang Zheng's body caused old Dou's Taiyang and Taiyang acupoints to throb a few times. He looked at Tang Zheng in bewilderment and asked, "Who exactly are you?" "I'm his classmate. I just want to save him." The father and son's eyelids twitched as they looked at each other. Dou Jiang seemed to have grasped at a life-saving straw and asked, "Do you really have a way to save him?" "I can always give it a try." Tang Zheng didn't guarantee anything. However, this was great news for the father and son. They were already in despair, but Tang Zheng's words had undoubtedly given them a ray of hope. Even if this chance was very slim, they wouldn't hesitate to grab it. Moreover, they could only treat a dead horse as if it were still alive, although they also suspected that Tang Zheng was boasting. "Now, can you tell me how he became like this?" Tang Zheng asked. Old Man Dou removed his tobacco pipe and smacked his lips. With a face full of regret, he said, "This is all my fault. When he came back during the winter break, I insisted on bringing him to the mountains for a stroll. I wanted to see if there was any prey and bring it back to nourish his body. Inadvertently, we passed by a sinkhole. I don't know where a ray of light came from, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. I always thought that my old eyes were blurred, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But not long after he came back, my grandson fell into a coma." "Heavenly pit light?" Tang Zheng frowned. "That's right. There are many craters in this vast mountain range. It is said that they were formed by meteorites in the past. There are no less than 1,000 of them, big and small. These sky pits vary in size, but to us who live in these mountains all year round, there isn't anything special about them, so we didn't pay much attention to them." Old Dou said. "What about the light?" "I asked my grandson afterwards, but he didn't see anything. I always thought that my old eyes were blurred. If it weren't for these things that happened later, I'm afraid I would have forgotten. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid it really is related to that light." Old Dou analyzed. Tang Zheng was unable to come to a conclusion, but he guessed that Sinosaurus's coma was most likely related to that mysterious light. "Has something like this happened to you before?" "We rely on the mountain to eat the mountain. In the past, when we went up the mountain, we did indeed encounter some unclean things. However, as long as the shaman makes a move, the illness will definitely be cured. It definitely won't be as strange as this." Tang Zheng nodded. The power in Sinosaurus's body was not an unclean power like evil qi or yin qi. Instead, it gave off a vast feeling that made it hard for people to figure out. Wu silently listened. Seeing that the matter was so bizarre, he couldn't help but be interested. He asked in a low voice, "Can you really save him?" "No matter what, I will save him," Tang Zheng firmly said. "I will first investigate what kind of power is causing trouble in his body. Only then will I be able to prescribe the right medicine." Old Dou come out. Suddenly, an explosive shout came in. It was like a sudden clap of thunder, interrupting the few of them. Tang Zheng was shocked. He stopped what he was doing and curiously looked out the window. The dark courtyard was already filled with people. It was definitely the villagers who had returned and found more helpers. When Old Dou heard this voice, his expression couldn't help but change. He sank into deep fear and worry as he said in a low voice, "The shaman is here. They actually gathered the shaman to chase us away. This is too much." "Is the shaman really that powerful?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. He couldn't help but have a competitive spirit. "Of course. Within a radius of 100 miles, a single word from the shaman is more useful than anyone else's. If anyone encounters an unclean thing, inviting her is guaranteed to be the right choice. Moreover, the shaman knows magic. Old Do said with a face full of shock. Old Do, hurry up and come out. The shaman is here. Someone shouted. You guys don't go out. I will deal with them. I don't believe in evil. I have lived here all my life. Now that I am old, I will be chased away like a stray dog. Even if I risk my old life, they will not succeed. Old Do clenched his teeth and said, Dad, I am here. I don't care what shaman she is. If she dares to touch my son, I will fight her to the death. At worst, we will die together. Do Jiang said heroically. Since the shaman knew magic, this father and son pair would definitely not be her opponent. How could he let them take the risk? Tang Zheng hurriedly comforted them. Old man, uncle, I will go out and take a look. Aya, how can you do that? You are foreigners. They will not be afraid of you. Instead, they will be unrestrained. What if they hurt you? Old Do anxiously advised. The people in this area were valiant and many of them were born hunters. Ordinary people were not their opponents. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, Don't worry, they won't be able to hurt me. This shaman is so powerful, I also want to meet her. Tang Zheng had always been interested in people with spells. This person might be a cultivator, but as for how high his cultivation was, that was still unknown. Tang Zheng pushed open the door and walked out without any explanation, causing the father and son of the Do family to jump up and down anxiously. This young man was too reckless. In this remote place, no one would reason with you. The things in the city wouldn't work. The two of them hurriedly followed. Marshall crossed his arms and walked out as if he was watching a good show. He thought to himself that following by Tang Zheng's side would never be boring, and now he had encountered such an interesting matter. The courtyard was already packed with people. One of them was dressed differently from the other villagers. Her clothes were gorgeous, and there were many strange patterns embroidered on her clothes. She held a scepter in her hand, and at the top of the scepter was a green gem. Her gaze was sharp, and she did not look like an old woman at all. This person is definitely that shaman. Tang Zheng silently thought. This person did indeed have mana fluctuations, but it was very weak, to the point that Tang Zheng could not see through her cultivation. Could it be that she was also deliberately hiding her cultivation? The shaman took a step forward and slammed the scepter on the ground with a bang. She stared at the father and son of the Do clan and said, Old Do, your grandson has been infected with evil energy. He must be expelled from this village. This is God's will. I don't care about God's will. This is my home. If you want to drive me away, you have to step over my old bones. Old Do blew his beard and glared, not budging an inch. Old Do, if you dare to disobey the shaman, you will disobey God's will. You will be punished by God. The crowd was stirred up, and someone indignantly said, So what if I am punished? I am an old man with half of my body in the ground. What punishment would I be afraid of? Old Do said without fear. The other party was speechless. The shaman frowned and was silent for a moment before saying, Old Do, you are not afraid of punishment. But what about your son and daughter-in-law? Don't tell me you want to drag them into the fire pit as well? Old Do was suddenly startled. Seeing this, the shaman's mouth curved into a smile. She understood that she had poked at Old Do's weak spot. She continued, Your grandson is already incurable, but you still have to think about your son and daughter-in-law. Incurable? Old Man Do felt pain in his heart. Those words were like a knife that ruthlessly stabbed into his heart. He angrily glared at the shaman and roared, My grandson will not die. You are the one who is incurable. Dad, don't waste words with them. What God's punishment? It's all bullshit. I don't believe in this evil. Do Jiang had lived in the city for a long time, so he was not afraid of these supernatural things. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd began to discuss spiritedly and loudly berate them. The shaman's face was covered in dark clouds as he said, You dare to insult God? God will punish you. Your Do family will fall into an endless abyss of darkness. Hearing these words, Old Do's eyelids fiercely twitched. He was clearly afraid. Seeing that the shaman had been playing tricks for so long, Tangjung no longer had the mood to continue watching. She bravely stepped forward and stood in front of the Dou family. Facing the shaman, she sneered. Even if you want to play tricks, you should have a sense of propriety. You forcefully drove away the Dou family. This kind of behavior is too despicable. Who are you? What right do you have to speak? The shaman angrily shouted. I am Sinosaurus' classmate. I can't stand you people bullying the Dou family. Especially you. What shaman? You only know how to play tricks. From what I see, you didn't save Sinosaurus and were worried that your reputation would be tarnished. So you have resentment in your heart and instigated the villagers to deal with the Dou family, right? These words could be said to have hit the nail on the head and poked the shaman's sore spot. This was indeed the reason why she instigated the villagers to deal with the Dou family. Not only did she fail to save Sinosaurus, but she was also scared away. Her face was covered in dirt, and if she didn't chase the Dou family away, then who would believe her in the future? However, she never thought that her thoughts would be so easily seen through by this student. She was incomparably embarrassed as she shouted, Nonsense! This person insulted God. Everyone, work together and chase him and the Dou family away. After that, I will perform a ritual to pray for God's forgiveness. Otherwise, this village will suffer the wrath of the heavens, and everyone will suffer. Chapter 576. Several villagers brandished their fists and rushed towards Tangjung, ready to scare away this outspoken outsider. The Dou father and son reacted quickly and shouted, Stop! The father and son rushed out at the same time, and tightly protected Tangjung behind them. At the same time, the father and son advised, Young man, quickly return to the house. With us father and son here, no one can hurt you. These two people were Sinosaurus's classmates. If anything happened to them, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. Tangjung's heart warmed as he looked at the tall backs of the father and son, as well as the villagers who were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. With a wave of his hand, the father and son of the Dou clan involuntarily retreated, and like a ghost he leaped and protected them. Before the father and son could figure out what was going on, they found that they had switched positions. They turned pale with fright and shouted, Be careful! Tangjung didn't need to be careful. The ones who should be careful were the villagers who rushed over. Tangjung quickly pointed his finger, and the villagers fell to the ground unconscious. Everyone immediately looked at Tangjung with dumbfounded expressions. For a long time, they were speechless. The shaman's pupils shrank as she stared at Tangjung and shouted, Who are you? Just now, he did not see clearly how Tangjung made his move, but he only saw that the villagers who rushed over all fell to the ground. This scene was too impactful. Tangjung smiled. I have already said that I am Sinosaurus's classmate. This is his home. Whether they leave or not, it's not up to you to tell them what to do. At this time, the villagers were at their wits' end. They looked at the shaman and waited for her to make a decision. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the shaman's face was gloomy. If she retreated this time, her reputation would be ruined. It would be difficult to bewitch this group of villagers in the future. Humph, just a student. At most he has a few moves. But he dares to act arrogantly in front of me. He really doesn't know life from death. The shaman gritted her teeth and cursed. She made up her mind to teach the other party a painful lesson. She wanted everyone to understand that no one could compete with her. So she shouted with a livid face, Disrespect to the gods. Today, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of the gods. Whoosh. Before she finished speaking, she rushed towards Tangjung. Although she was not young and her body was not as strong as the other villagers, her speed was extremely fast. A strong wind blew, and she was already in front of Tangjung. She waved the scepter in her hand and attacked Tangjung's chest with great strength. The hearts of the others were in their throats. The father and son of the Dou family wanted to help, but they found that their shoulders were grabbed by a pair of delicate little hands, and they couldn't move at all. The two of them turned around in shock, only to find that it was the beautiful girl who had been silent all this time. The two burly men actually couldn't resist that pair of delicate white hands. Relax, she can't hurt Tangjung. Wu Gujing said calmly. They nodded subconsciously, as if her words were magical, making them unable to think of resisting. Seeing that the scepter was right in front of him, Tang Zheng used his hand as a sword and pointed out with his finger. Boundless sword will gathered at his fingertip and touched the scepter. Bang! Tang Zheng did not move an inch, but the shaman flew out and crashed into the courtyard wall before stopping. Ah! The crowd immediately cried out in alarm, as they stared at Tang Zheng as if they were looking at a ghost. Then they looked at the embarrassed shaman, as this was too outrageous. The invincible shaman, who was usually high up in their hearts, was actually so easily defeated by this student. Even a fool could tell who was stronger and who was weaker between the two. The shaman was burning with anger, her eyes spitting fire as if she wanted to eat Tang Zheng alive. Seeing the reaction of the villagers, she knew that this time she must get rid of this student, or else she wouldn't be able to survive here. She took a deep breath, clenched her teeth and said, "You force me to do this, you only have yourself to blame." Tang Zheng faintly smiled and said, "You don't have the strength, so don't try to bewitch people. Otherwise, the one who will lose face in the end will be you." "God please." The shaman sneered and suddenly said as she pointed her scepter towards the sky. The green gem emitted a faint light, and the air was filled with a strange aura. Many of the villagers knelt on the ground and excitedly shouted, "The shaman has invited the gods to descend, this student is finished." This is the descending of the shaman and the gods. Old Do's expression also became extremely frightened. In his early years, he had personally seen the shaman's power when she invited the gods. The fear in his heart had long since seeped into his bones. He turned pale with fright and shouted, "Quickly, quickly save him. If the shaman invites the gods to descend, he will not be her opponent." Marshall did not say a word as she looked at the shaman with interest. The emerald on the scepter shone brightly and shot up into the sky. Then it descended from the sky and landed on her body, completely enveloping her. At the same time, the strange patterns on her clothes also emitted light, complementing the emerald light. In an instant, her entire aura underwent an earth-shattering change, becoming even sharper and her aura even more powerful. Tang Zheng watched all of this without blinking. He did not disturb the other party because he was really curious about this set of techniques and deliberately wanted to see through it. "Brat, accept your death." The shaman roared and once again attacked. She waved her scepter, and the air was swept away. Tang Zheng was still unarmed. He quickly blocked and retreated half a step, while the other party retreated a step. But in an instant the other party's second round of attack came. The green gem on the scepter shot out a green light, directly attacking Tang Zheng's heart. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. It was obvious that the power of this attack was much greater than before. When his finger came into contact with the green light actually penetrated through his fingertips and seeped into Tang Zheng's body. A cold feeling instantly spread throughout his body, as if he was going to be frozen stiff. Strange. Tang Zheng revolved his power, and the cold feeling disappeared without a trace. However, an illusion appeared in his mind. A monster bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws roared at him, as if it wanted to devour his soul. "Haha, you've eaten my attack. God will soon punish you. Your time of death has come." The shaman laughed proudly. She was not in a hurry to attack. She was confident. Sure enough, the illusion of this monster fluttered in Tang Zheng's mind. A stinging pain made him suck in a breath of cold air. Although this was an illusion, its power was not small. If it was allowed to wreak havoc, then Tang Zheng's brain would be damaged and finally become a fool. I understand now. This is the so-called god that she invited. However, this is not a god at all. It is just a remnant of the soul of a demon beast. The soul is attached to the emerald of the scepter. When the shaman uses a secret technique to activate the emerald, part of the power of the demon beast's soul will be attached to her body. That's why her attack power is greatly increased. In fact, her own cultivation is not high. She must rely on this so-called god in order to achieve a qualitative leap in her strength. This scepter must be an ancient weapon, and this demon beast's soul was sealed in it in order to increase its power. This shaman may have obtained this scepter by chance. That's why she accidentally cultivated a little bit of magic to swindle others. But today, Li Gui met Li Kuei. Facing a powerful cultivator like Tang Zheng, her little tricks were not enough. With a thought, Tang Zheng's true fire emerged from his sea of consciousness and directly wrapped around the demon beast's soul. The demon beast's soul immediately roared and screamed. It kept rolling, trying to break free. However, its strength was too weak. It could not escape from the true fire's imprisonment. Ah! A scream resounded through the night sky. The shaman who was originally confident suddenly held her head and screamed. She shouted, "What are you doing?" Tang Zheng shivered. It seemed that this demon beast's soul had some kind of mysterious connection with her. That's why when the demon beast's soul was burned by the true fire, she was also affected. "Didn't you invite the god to punish me? Why are you the one suffering? I think it's the god who blames you and not me," Tang Zheng jokingly said. "Impossible, absolutely impossible. What's going on here? Who are you?" The shaman screamed hoarsely. Her face was distorted because of the pain. All these years, it wasn't that no one dared to challenge her authority, but they were all defeated by her. Furthermore, she even used the souls of demonic beasts to turn them into fools, telling outsiders that this was a punishment from the gods. After several times, no one dared to go against her anymore, and she became the absolute authority. But this time she had failed miserably. Facing a mere student, she had been utterly defeated. The villagers looked at the shaman, who was usually superior and invincible, had become like this. Their eyes widened in disbelief, and their hearts beat violently. The Dou father and son looked at each other. They couldn't hide their horror. At the same time, they were secretly delighted. The more powerful Tang Zheng was, the greater the hope of Sinosaurus being saved. The shaman was screaming and rolling on the ground. She no longer had her previous arrogant attitude. She loudly begged for mercy. "Stop, stop. It hurts. It hurts. Tell me, are you lying?" Tang Zheng struck while the iron was hot. "Yes, I'm lying. There is no god at all. I'm just trying to trick everyone's money. That's why I'm being mysterious." She hesitated for a moment, but the heart-wrenching pain made her completely lose her resistance, and she revealed the truth. "So she is trying to cheat people's money. Too hateful." The villagers woke up from their dream and were furious. "Yes, there is no god. This is all in order to confuse people. Now that she has shown her true form, no one will be deceived in the future. These years she has harmed many people. Several families were ruined by her." Tang Zheng smiled with satisfaction. However, he didn't stop. This demon beast soul was nothing to him. However, to ordinary people it was a fatal threat. Therefore, he didn't want to leave it behind. With a thought, his true fire burned more and more vigorously. Accompanied by an ear-piercing scream, the demon beast soul exploded and turned into nothingness. At the same time, the emerald on the scepter also exploded, completely turning into scrap. Chapter 577. The villagers had already retreated to the entrance of the courtyard as they looked at Tang Zheng in panic. They were so scared that their legs went soft and many of them had to support themselves against the courtyard walls to stand firm. The Dou clan father and son heaved a sigh of relief, but were also extremely shocked. They looked at Tang Zheng in a daze, and were speechless for a long time. Tang Zheng swept his gaze over the villagers. They were so scared that they hurriedly dodged backwards, afraid that they would follow in the shaman's footsteps. However, he had no interest in scaring these villagers. He calmly said, "Take her away. If anyone dares to cause trouble in the Dou clan again, then I won't be polite." "No, we definitely won't. She was the one who instigated us." The villagers felt as if they had been pardoned. They hurriedly dragged the already stupid shaman out, and disappeared into the boundless night. It was as if they were afraid that Tang Zheng would go back on his word. "Young man," old Dou stammered, not knowing how to speak to Tang Zheng. It was obvious that Tang Zheng had given him too much of a shock. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, "Grandfather, uncle, let's save Sinosaurus first." The two of them seemed to have awoken from a dream as they hurriedly nodded. "Right, saving people is more important. However, I need peace and quiet to save people, so I would like to ask the two of you to wait outside for a while." Tang Zheng was afraid that there would be some strange phenomenon that would scare the two of them, so he deliberately sent them away. The two of them nodded their heads like they were pounding garlic and said, "Understood, we will be outside the door. If there is anything you need, just call out." Tang Zheng glanced at Wu and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. She would not listen to him and stay outside the house. Moreover, she knew his identity, so there was nothing to hide. Since she was willing to see, then let her see. Inside the house, Wu Zhuozhuo looked at him and asked, "How are you going to save him?" There is a powerful energy in his body, and the reason why he became like this is because of this energy. So if we can figure out what this energy is, maybe there will be a way to save him, Tang Zheng said tirelessly. Then I'll wait and see. Tang Zheng helped Sinosaurus to sit down cross-legged while he sat behind him. He placed his palms on Sinosaurus' back and slowly circulated the ancient clear heaven scroll. True Qi flowed out from his palms like a stream, seemingly penetrating Sinosaurus' back and entering his body. Since the energy in the other party's body was so domineering, then he would be gentle. He would use softness to overcome hardness and turn his zhenqi into flowing water. Dripping water could penetrate a stone, and it would eventually penetrate that layer of protection. In fact, Tang Zheng could also fight strength with strength. However, he was worried that the energy would harm Sinosaurus, so he could only use this gentle method. Tang Zheng's zhenqi attempted to penetrate the other party's back bit by bit. However, he could clearly feel an energy resisting his zhenqi, preventing him from succeeding. However, there was one thing that made Tang Zheng very happy, and that was that the resistance was clearly much weaker than before. Looks like this method is feasible. Then let's see who can outlast the other. Tang Zheng's zhenqi was abundant, and this level of zhenqi consumption was almost negligible. The moment it was consumed, the ancient clear heaven scroll would circulate and produce new zhenqi, continuously replenishing him. This was a battle of attrition, and Tang Zheng was not in a hurry. Marshall looked at the two people who did not react, and could not help but frown. He wanted to ask, but in the end he held back. At this critical moment of saving a life, any disturbance could cause all the previous efforts to go to waste. Not only the patient, even the rescuer could suffer a backlash and be injured. Outside the house, the three people of the Dou clan anxiously waited. Dou Jiang paced back and forth in the courtyard with a worried expression. Mother Dou looked outside the house and said worriedly, "I didn't hear any movement. Can he really cure our son?" Dou Jiang did not stop walking and said in a low voice, "You're asking me, how would I know?" Mother Dou let out a long sigh as she became more and more anxious. Old man Dou once again smoked his pipe. Hearing his son and wife's discussion, he raised his head to look at the house and said, "My grandson's classmate is not simple." Dou Jiang nodded in agreement. Yanqing University is truly a crouching tiger and hidden dragon. Letting him go to that school last year was a wise decision. In any case, I have lived for dozens of years and have never seen such a young man. His future achievements are limitless. Moreover, I believe that he can cure my grandson. He definitely can. Old man Dou waved his skinny fist as if trying to boost his confidence. Tang Zheng's forehead gradually broke out in cold sweat. An hour had already passed and his method was still not effective. Sinosaurus's body was like an iron wall. Even if he used this soft method, he was still unable to do anything. No, I can't give up like this. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and persevered for another hour, but the result was still the same. This caused his confidence to take a huge hit. Second brother, I will definitely save you. I will definitely not let this strange and powerful energy destroy you. Tang Zheng silently encouraged himself. Seeing his reaction, Marshall finally understood that the past few hours of hard work had been in vain. He could not help but ridicule. Didn't you boast that you are powerful? His family is still waiting outside, but you can't cure him. Tang Zheng fiercely glared and said, I will not give up. I know you are very good at persevering, but if the direction is wrong and you continue to persevere, then you will be retreating in the opposite direction. The direction is wrong. Tang Zheng's head moved slightly. He had persevered for 2 hours without any effect. Perhaps this method of dripping water penetrating a stone really was not enough. Then let's change another method. But what method should I use? Water overflows when it is full, and the moon is full when it is full. You are too arrogant, so you will definitely fall. This time, the taste of falling is not bad, right? Marshall said jokingly, not letting go of such a good opportunity to attack Tang Zheng. Water overflows when it is full, and the moon is full when it is full. However, Tang Zheng did not care about the other party's teasing words at all. Instead, these two words appeared in his mind. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. He slapped his head and scolded. I'm an idiot. Why didn't I think of this method? Isn't his energy too strong? Then let's divert it, and let this powerful energy out of his body. Wouldn't he be saved then? Marshall was startled. What exactly did he say? Why did it seem like he had pushed aside the clouds and seen the blue sky for him? Why do I have so much nonsense to say? She curled her lips and silently cursed. I see that you are so excited. Is it really possible? Don't waste your time in the end. Tang Zheng circulated his power. This time, it was not true qi that was swallowed and spat out, but a huge suction force was produced in the center of his palm, like a whirlpool. Hiss, a trace of energy was extracted from Sinosaurus's body. It's really possible. That's great. I wasted so much time earlier. So I was looking in the wrong direction. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He immediately focused and calmed down. He increased his power, and the suction force in his palm suddenly increased. After this energy was absorbed by Tang Zheng's body, it drilled into his 8 meridians. This energy was extremely powerful. It filled his meridians, as if it wanted to completely fill them up and block them. Since you're in my body, how can I let you do whatever you want? With a thought, the true qi in his 8 extraordinary meridians gathered towards this energy from all directions. Then like a dumpling it wrapped around the other party and refined this energy bit by bit. This energy was ownerless. Although it was charging left and right, it was still unable to escape the encirclement of the true qi. It was refined bit by bit, and then transformed into true qi. In the blink of an eye, Tang Zheng felt like a balloon that was instantly filled with hydrogen. Even his 8 extraordinary meridians were widened by the sudden arrival of true qi, enough to accommodate even more true qi. This is really a pleasant surprise. There was a limit to the amount of true qi that could be stored in a person's body because the space was so big. However, if the meridians were widened, then it was completely different. It could store even more true qi, and when facing an enemy, it could consume even more true qi. This was an advantage. Since this energy had such a function, then Tang Zheng certainly could not let go of this great opportunity. While absorbing the energy in Sinosaurus's body, he controlled the transformed true qi to impact his meridians and expand them little by little. His meridians were like a small road in the countryside, and then step by step, expanded into a highway. The feeling of surging true qi made him want to look up to the sky and roar. The energy gradually weakened. Tang Zheng stopped. The true qi in his palm only encountered very weak resistance this time. Then, the true qi broke through the defense and entered Sinosaurus's body. Wow! Tang Zheng was shocked. Sinosaurus's body had already undergone earth-shattering changes. He saw that the wide meridians were like Roman avenues that spanned across his body. Moreover, the meridians were flowing with energy on their own. His body has also been transformed by this energy. This body is too suitable for cultivation. In the past, Sinosaurus's body could only be considered strong, but now it was like the difference between heaven and earth. And what is this? A hammer. Suddenly, Tang Zheng saw a black hammer floating in his dantian. He could not see what material it was made of, but in Tang Zheng's eyes, it was a magic treasure, but he could not see what quality it was. Could it be that this hammer caused his condition? The light that Old Man Do spoke of must have been emitted by this hammer, but no one would have thought that it would actually run into Sinosaurus's dantian. This energy contains powerful energy. If he had not met me, it would have definitely backfired on him. In the end, it would have been swallowed by this powerful energy. But now he can use this energy and the hammer for his own use. He has profited from a disaster. Ordinary people's cultivation is very slow, but after this incident, his cultivation will be twice as fast with half the effort. Suddenly, Do Long groaned softly. Tang Zheng felt as if he had just woken up from a dream and regained his senses from the shock. He withdrew his palms and immediately asked with concern, "Lao Air, how are you?" Sinosaurus slowly woke up. He looked at Tang Zheng in astonishment and said weakly, "Third brother, is that you? My body seems to have undergone earth-shattering changes. This is all because of you." "Thank you." "Because of me?" "That's right. The pills you gave us before saved my life." "You mean the Peiyuan pill? Is that called the Peiyuan pill?" Sinosaurus did not fully understand. After the Peiyuan pill was refined, Tang Zheng left a lot for his roommates to eat as snacks. It was to strengthen their foundation and improve their physique so that they could cultivate in the future. Chapter 578. The Peiyuan Dan had improved Sinosaurus's physique, so when the hammer entered his body, the powerful energy it emitted did not immediately take his life, allowing him to survive for so many days. Otherwise, even if Tang Zheng had saved him, he would have been finished long ago. Thus, Tang Zheng's unintentional actions had saved Sinosaurus's life. This was called planting flowers with the intention not blooming, but planting a willow unintentionally and growing a shade. This was a fortuitous encounter. Wu De looked at the awakened Sinosaurus in astonishment. His unintentional words had actually enlightened Tang Zheng, allowing him to think of a way to break the seal and save him. This isn't all his credit. I also have a part of it, so he's not that amazing. Wu De suffered a blow and could not help but comfort himself in his heart. After coming back from the gates of hell, Sinosaurus had gained a lot. Although he was still weak, the look in his eyes had clearly changed a lot. He looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze and laughed softly. "Well, 3, you really hid it from me. If not for experiencing this, I wouldn't have known that you were a cultivator." Tang Zheng was slightly moved. Sinosaurus being able to expose the matter of cultivators with a single sentence was commendable. Not only had his physique undergone an earth-shattering change, he also knew about Su Hao and more knowledge about cultivators. Without a doubt, this was definitely related to that mysterious hammer. "Second brother, since you know my identity, then I have something to tell you. The identity of a cultivator in this world is extremely awkward. The living environment can be considered harsh. There are many enemies. If I had told you my true identity back then, it would have harmed you. I hope you understand." Tang Zheng said sincerely. Sinosaurus exclaimed in surprise, and said, "Is that so? I thought cultivators were very awesome, like the gods in the legends, flying in the sky and burrowing into the earth, omnipotent. Why do you sound so bitter?" Could it be that the hammer did not tell you this? This time it was Tang Zheng's turn to be curious. Sinosaurus blankly said. The information in the mountain-shattering meteor hammer only said that there are cultivators and martial artists in this world. It did not say that the living conditions of cultivators are so harsh. Mountain-shattering meteor hammer? Yes, that hammer's name is mountain-shattering meteor hammer. It is said that it has the power to shatter mountains. Tang Zheng nodded his head. That was truly a rare divine weapon. What grade magic treasure is that? Heaven grade magic treasure. Tang Zheng stared at him, as he could not help but admire his dogshit luck. Even when hunting, he was able to encounter a heaven grade magical treasure that would take the initiative to possess him. This kind of heaven-defying luck, many cultivators to the point of their blood. Do Long was confused. He did not know how precious the mountain-shattering meteor hammer was, and asked curiously, "Why is the situation of cultivators so tragic?" Since Sinosaurus had already stepped into the ranks of cultivators, Tang Zheng could not help but say a few more words, clearly explaining the current situation of cultivators and martial artists. Sinosaurus frowned. His face was uglier than crying. He pursed his lips and said, "It seems that this world is full of danger. I thought that I would be able to enjoy limitless glory in the future. Fuck, it seems that I was thinking too much." Hee, you can indeed enjoy limitless glory, but it also comes with danger. This is called the reward is proportional to the risk. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. Since cultivators and martial artists are like fire and water, Why is this beauty always by your side? And Yi Ding Dang, didn't she also do that with you? Sinosaurus blinked his eyes and asked with an evil smile. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and said, "The situation is different. In short, your identity should be kept secret as much as possible. Don't let others find out, otherwise it will be very dangerous." Sinosaurus sighed and said, "It seems that I still have to tuck my tail between my legs. It's not like it's been a day or two. It's not that big of a problem. In addition, it's best to keep this matter a secret from your family. The more they know, the more dangerous it will be," Tang Zheng warned. "I understand. Then why don't you tell me how you came across this mountain-shattering meteor hammer?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. This was the question he was most concerned about. This kind of divine weapon was hard to come by. "Hee, it's nothing special. It's just that my grandfather and I went hunting in the mountains and accidentally passed by a sinkhole. Then the mountain-shattering meteor hammer felt my tyrannical aura and knew that I was a 1 in 1,000 cultivation genius, so it willingly entered my body," Sinosaurus proudly boasted. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and joked, "Don't think too highly of yourself, tyrannical aura. Your temperament is just like a fox pretending to be a tiger." "Hey, you can't slander me," Sinosaurus retorted unconvinced. "You're just jealous, naked jealousy. What other mysteries are there in that sinkhole? Will there be other divine weapons?" Tang Zheng asked. Sinosaurus shook his head. "How would I know? I was a blank piece of paper at that time. I didn't know anything." "I want to go and take a look," Tang Zheng decided. There was no divine weapon in this world that appeared for no reason. There must have been many people who had passed through that sinkhole before, but this mountain-shattering meteor hammer didn't combine with others, but chose Sinosaurus. There must be some reason for this. Since he was here, of course, he had to investigate it clearly. Moreover, Su Yingtian also came to the northeast, but he didn't know why, but he felt that something must have happened in the northeast to make Su Yingtian personally come. "Okay, I'll lead the way," Sinosaurus said while patting his chest. Dong dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, interrupting the conversation between the two. "Grandson's son. Is that you talking? Are you awake?" The Doe family members asked with concern outside. "Let's talk later. Let's see your family first. During this period of time, they have been worried to death about you." Creak. The door opened, and 3 people staggered in. When they saw Sinosaurus sitting on the Kong, the 3 of them were startled, and then flew towards him, shouting in joy. "You're awake, that's great. The heavens have eyes." The family hugged each other, and even a big man like Do Jiang shed tears of happiness. These days, to their family, were simply torturous, and their hope was almost extinguished. They didn't expect that there would be such a big turn of events. "Others are watching, how embarrassing." Sinosaurus glanced at Tang Zheng and Marshall, and said embarrassedly, "If this embarrassing situation were to spread back to the school, then wouldn't his reputation be destroyed in an instant? Little Tang is not an outsider." Old Do patted his grandson's head and said, "This time, it's all thanks to him. Otherwise you and your little life would have been lost. Our Doe family's children are all people who know how to repay kindness. Do you understand?" Sinosaurus said with grievance. "Then do I have to repay you with my body?" "Pa." Old Doe knocked on his grandson's head and scolded. "You're not serious." Sinosaurus stuck out his tongue and winked at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, "Grandfather is too serious. Sinosaurus is my brother. I should save him. Moreover, this is also a small matter." "Grandfather, did you hear that? This is called brother," Sinosaurus said as if he was presenting a treasure. In fact, he was also very grateful to Tang Zheng for saving his life, but in front of so many people, and all of them were men, he was too embarrassed to say thank you in public. Old Do smiled with gratification and said, "I hope that you can be brothers for a lifetime, grandson. This kindness must be engraved in your heart. Do you understand?" "I know." Sinosaurus nodded heavily, and this time he did not refute. "He's still very weak, let him rest first." Seeing Sinosaurus's pale face, Tang Zheng advised, "Okay, rest, you've been busy all night, it's time to rest." "Mom, I'm hungry, let's eat first," Sinosaurus said. Mother Doe slapped her head and said, I was too happy. The food that I prepared for your classmates, they didn't have time to eat. I'll go prepare it immediately, you guys wait for a while. The family was happy and harmonious, and the depressing situation from before was completely different. In the afternoon, Tang Zheng and the other two woke up after a good night's sleep. Sinosaurus recovered very quickly. His face had already regained its rosy color, and he was in high spirits, as if he had endless energy. Bang! He threw a punch at a pile of snow in the corner, causing it to explode, and snowflakes flew into the air, dancing in the air. Wah! He looked at his fist in shock, and found it hard to believe. Is this the strength of a cultivator? You're already at the 5th grade refining body, you've really soared to the heavens, you're even more powerful than me back then. Tang Zheng sighed. Back then he had cultivated the ancient clear heaven scroll step by step, slowly increasing his cultivation, but Sinosaurus's path was completely different. He was like a pauper who suddenly obtained a large amount of treasure, and although a portion of it was absorbed by Tang Zheng, the remaining energy allowed his cultivation to undergo a qualitative leap. Of course, this did not mean that his physique was more powerful than Tang Zheng's. It was just that the two of them walked different paths. Tang Zheng's Nine-Yang Saint body was still a super physique that no other physique could compare to. Sinosaurus chuckled and proudly said, I already said that this brother is a genius, now you know. The two of them chatted and laughed, as if they had returned to their school days. Without a doubt, after this battle, the relationship between the two of them improved by leaps and bounds, and they really became brothers who went through thick and thin together. Especially Sinosaurus's straightforward nature, although he did not say it out loud, but if anyone dared to go against Tang Zheng, he would definitely not hesitate to stand in front of Tang Zheng to protect him, even if he had to give up his life. Marshall crossed her arms, and silently watched the two of them from the side. Her expression was as calm as an ancient well, but her heart was already in turmoil. In the past, she had always thought that there were very few cultivators in this world, and there were indeed very few of them. But ever since she met Tang Zheng, cultivators emerged one after another, like bamboo shoots after a rain. This time, she had personally witnessed the transformation of a cultivator. If it was in the past, she would have already killed him, because this was her belief, and she had been educated like this since she was young. However, now that her belief was collapsing bit by bit, witnessing the rise of cultivators one by one, she suddenly felt a sense of panic. Could it be that in the future, there would be more and more cultivators in this world? Then what about the martial artists? She shook herself violently, unable to comprehend the matter. Master will definitely consider such a big matter. I will just carry out his orders. With great difficulty, she managed to find a reason for herself, and like an ostrich buried in the sand, she did not want to think about this problem that made her panic. Marshall, let's go to the sky pit now. Tang Zheng's voice interrupted her thoughts. Chapter 579. Sky Pit, a large pit with a diameter of more than 10 meters, dozens of meters deep. It was pitch black, and the bottom of the pit could not be seen clearly. It was said that at some point in time, this unique landscape was formed by the impact of a meteorite from outer space. There were many large and small sinkholes in this endless Changbai mountain. To the nearby mountain people, sinkholes were not surprising at all. They had seen many of them since they were young. But usually, they just had to be careful not to fall. They had never heard of anyone having any fortuitous encounters beside the sinkhole. Here, this is the sinkhole that grandfather and I passed by. Sinosaurus pointed to the sinkhole beneath his feet and said. Tang Zheng frowned as he looked at the sinkhole. It was dark under the sinkhole, so he could not see the situation clearly. Have you been down there? Sinosaurus shook his head. Why would I go down there? It's so dark. Who knows what kind of monsters there might be? Do you want to go down and take a look? It's so high, how do we get down? Sinosaurus shrunk his neck and took a step back. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously and jumped, like a big bird pouncing into the sinkhole. Lao-san, what are you doing? Sinosaurus screamed in shock. Wu glanced at him without saying a word. With a tap of his foot, he also fell into the sinkhole. Sinosaurus was flabbergasted and muttered to himself. Damn, are the two of them not afraid of death? Suddenly, he remembered his identity as a cultivator. Lao-san is not afraid, and even that woman is not afraid, but I am afraid to move forward. Am I still a man? What are you afraid of? I am a cultivator, so I should be very powerful. He took a deep breath and stretched out the tip of his foot to test it. He stepped on a protruding stone on the wall of the pit. Suddenly, the stone loosened and rolled into the sinkhole. His feet slipped, and with a scream, he fell straight to the bottom of the pit. Damn, I'm going to fall to my death. I'm going to be smashed to pieces, leaving only a pile of dregs. Do Long wanted to cry, but no tears came out. However, a burst of energy gushed out from his body, causing his speed of descent to decrease drastically. His eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He immediately grabbed a rock and stabilized his body. Second brother, stop dawdling. Come down quickly. The fall won't hurt you. You have to adapt to the energy in your body. Otherwise, you'll be like a baby hugging a machine gun. It'll be a waste. Tang Zheng's voice came from below. Sinosaurus was greatly embarrassed. His face reddened as he said, I'm not a child. Isn't it just adapting? Who doesn't? My adaptability is so strong that it scares even myself. Then he adjusted his breathing and suppressed his pounding heart. He let go of his hand and started free-falling. It was as if he had suddenly been enlightened. He slapped his palm on the wall of the pit to dissipate most of the force. Then he started free-falling again. Whenever his speed was too fast, he would slam his palm on the wall of the pit to dissipate the force of impact and reduce his speed. He repeated this over and over again, until he gradually got used to it. He shouted excitedly. This unprecedented feeling was really too good. Bang! His feet landed on the ground. His body swayed a bit before he finally stopped falling. He said as if he was presenting a treasure. Third brother, look at how powerful I am. I'm so high but I'm actually safe and sound. Marshall couldn't help but roll his eyes. This wasn't something worth showing off. It was just too normal. But he wasn't complacent for too long because he saw the flames jumping on Tang Zheng's fingertips. He couldn't help but exclaim, Damn, your fingers can even emit flames. I want to learn this move. It's too cool. The true fire jumped, illuminating the bottom of the black hole. The bottom of the hole was only covered with a thin layer of snow. In the middle of the hole, there was a large hole that was shocking to the eye. From the fresh soil that was flipped over, it could be determined that this large hole was definitely formed recently. Second brother, summon your mountain-shattering meteor hammer. Tang Zheng said in a deep voice. All right, look carefully. Sinosaurus deliberately played around. He rubbed his fists and shouted, Come out. There was nothing. Sinosaurus was stunned for a moment. He was incomparably embarrassed and said embarrassedly, I made a mistake. The first time was strange, the second time was familiar. This time it will definitely work. After he finished speaking, he clenched his teeth and roared, Mountain-shattering meteor hammer. Whoosh! A strong wind blew and a dark giant hammer appeared in his hand. The mountain-shattering meteor hammer was bigger than a human head. The huge hammer head gave people a sense of shock and power. It was the first time Sinosaurus summoned the mountain-shattering meteor hammer. He was overjoyed. He touched the giant hammer excitedly and muttered to himself, Domineering, this motherf asterisk curs domineering. With this hammer, a person's head will become a meat patty. He really had the urge to test it on someone. Third brother, don't be happy. Put the mountain-shattering meteor hammer into the hole. Tang Zheng said. Sinosaurus reluctantly put the mountain-shattering meteor hammer into the hole. It was obvious that this hole was the masterpiece of the mountain-shattering meteor hammer. My guess was right. This mountain-shattering meteor hammer was in this sinkhole before, but I don't know why, but it was absorbed into your body. Tang Zheng nodded. He understood some of the reasons, but more questions followed. When was this mountain-shattering meteor hammer in this sinkhole? From the fresh soil. It can be seen that this hole was created recently. In other words, the mountain-shattering meteor hammer has not been in this sinkhole for too long. Third brother, why are you frowning? Why don't we go to other sinkholes to look for it? Maybe we can find other treasures like the mountain-shattering meteor hammer. Sinosaurus suggested. Tang Zheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. How could there be so many treasures in this world? Moreover, there were countless sinkholes in this Changbai mountain. If there was a treasure in every one of them, then the treasure would be too worthless. Sinosaurus knew that his words were too ignorant and ridiculous. He said in embarrassment, "Third brother, if you really want this mountain-shattering meteor hammer, I'll give it to you. I believe it will be more powerful in your hands." Tang Zheng was stunned. Looking at the other party's reluctant and determined expression, his heart warmed. He understood that the other party had misunderstood his meaning, so he explained, "Second brother, you misunderstood. I don't want the mountain-shattering meteor hammer. Since it chose you, then it is your destiny. It belongs to you. I was thinking about something else." "What problem?" Marshall said thoughtfully. "He is thinking about where this mountain-shattering meteor hammer came from." Tang Zheng looked at Marshall with admiration. This woman was actually not as stupid as Li Xiaotian, but she usually relied on force to solve problems, and did not like to use her brain. Li Xiaotian was the exact opposite. When he could use his brain, he would not easily make a move, so he appeared to be two-faced and cunning. As expected, none of the people from Li Palace and Marshall's sect were easy to deal with. "Wow, beautiful lady. You are a roundworm in third brother's stomach. You even know what he is thinking," Sinosaurus exclaimed exaggeratedly. Marshall's face turned cold. Sinosaurus immediately hid behind Tang Zheng and changed the topic. "I don't know the origin of the mountain-shattering meteor hammer," Tang Zheng said, "so we have to investigate the ins and outs of everything. Any abnormal matter will not be as simple as it seems on the surface. There must be a deep underlying reason." "Third brother, why do I feel that your words are more and more philosophical?" Sinosaurus held his chin and said meaningfully. Tang Zheng smiled knowingly and said, "Are you envious?" "A little," Sinosaurus said bluntly. "Maybe now I know why you have so many beauties by your side. If I reach your level, maybe I will also have this kind of happiness." "Second brother, be careful that I tell that person in your family to serve you with the family law." Good brother, how can you tear down my stage? Let's talk about the important matters first. We have to investigate the origin of this mountain-shattering meteor hammer." Sinosaurus changed the topic and said. Tang Zheng gave a mischievous smile as his second brother's personality was becoming more and more out of control. It seems like the mountain fragment meteor hammer not only changed his body, but also his personality. In other words, now that he was strong, he was even more confident. Even his every move had a change in temperament. "That's right, this is our top priority." Before he finished speaking, Tang Zheng's voice suddenly stopped. He raised a finger to his lips and made a shushing gesture. Furthermore, he extinguished the true fire. "Everyone be careful. There are people approaching from outside the sky pit." The sound of footsteps outside the sky pit was transmitted to Tang Zheng's senses through the rocks. In this world of ice and snow, and in the first month, other than people like Tang Zheng who deliberately came to find out the reason, the nearby residents rarely went up the mountain. This was the experience that Old Man Doe had imparted to him. This kind of experience that had been summed up over the past few decades would definitely not be too big of a mistake. Therefore, the footsteps above his head were definitely not from the nearby residents, but from someone else. In this primeval forest, other than hunting tigers, there would be no traces of tourists. Therefore, the people above were not ordinary people. In addition, from the sound of footsteps, Tang Zheng also gained something. One of the footsteps was very light and slow, and if not for Tang Zheng focusing on his perception, he would not have noticed it. To be able to walk so easily in the heavy snow, this already showed how strong the other party was. The sound of footsteps gradually approached, and even Wu and Sinosaurus had already heard it. They simultaneously shivered and raised their heads to look at the sky, only to see a few figures appear at the edge of the sky pit. However, only Tang Zheng could see them, and because the bottom of the pit was too dark, the other party did not discover Tang Zheng and the other two. "Is it here?" a voice asked. "We've searched for so many sky pits in front of us, and only one of them has a harvest. This is the foot of the mountain, so this is the last sky pit in the south. If we don't find anything, then we'll stop here." Another person replied. I hope we can find something here. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too embarrassing to waste so much time and not find anything useful? In any case, we already have a harvest. That harvest is enough for our operation to be considered a success. Another person retorted. Hee, that's right. These days, it's getting more and more strange. Rare treasures have actually appeared so quietly. Chapter 580. The people on top of the sinkhole had finished their discussion and were ready to go down to the bottom of the sinkhole to check if there were any rare treasures. Sinosaurus asked anxiously in a low voice. What should we do? These people don't have good intentions, do they? Wu subconsciously tensed up his body, killing intent leaking out from his eyes. He was ready to make a move, but it was hidden by the darkness. Since they don't have good intentions, then we don't need to be polite with them. Tangjung said calmly. He was also very curious about this group of people, and wanted to find out who they were. How did he know that there were rare treasures in Changbai Mountain? Then let's do it. Sinosaurus asked expectantly and nervously. Let's do it. Tangjung smiled and nodded in confirmation. Swords have no eyes. Watch more and move less later. Sinosaurus patted his chest and said, That won't do. We'll face difficulties together. How can I be a burden to everyone? Whoosh, whoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air descended from the sky. Although it was dark, one could still feel the fierce aura. Tangjung and Marshall were ready to take action. With a few pung-pung sounds, the few of them had already landed at the bottom of the pit. Lights lit up in their hands, illuminating the surroundings. Tangjung and the other two could no longer conceal themselves. Ah! Cries of surprise rang out everywhere. The newcomer looked at Bai, and then saw Tangjung and the others. Who are you? At the same time, the newcomers launched an attack on Tangjung's group. However, Tangjung and Marshall were waiting to attack, so they were faster than the other party by half a beat. Sinosaurus, on the other hand, was slightly slower as it was his first time fighting, so he attacked at the same time as the other party. In a flash, Tangjung and Marshall had already struck their chests. The other party rolled their eyes and fainted. Sinosaurus, on the other hand, was engaged in a fierce battle with another person. The mountain-shattering meteor hammer was extraordinarily powerful, and as he swung it, the air was shaken apart. The pressure of Mount Tai directly broke the long sword that his opponent had hurriedly thrust out, and then, with a flat swing, smashed towards his opponent's chest. However, the opponent was not easy to deal with. Like a swimming fish, he quickly retreated and dodged the attack. Then he quickly fought with Sinosaurus. On the other side, Tangjung and Marshall were in completely different situations. After they knocked down two people, they wanted to launch a second round of attacks, but their opponent's reaction speed was far beyond their expectations. With a few swishing sounds, a few sword lights flew towards the two of them. This sword light was erratic and untraceable. It was incomparably gorgeous, and was even brighter than the lanterns in their hands. Moreover, it was filled with boundless killing intent. Shwa! The War Soul sword streaked across the black sky, and with a single move, the sky pit was filled with sand and rocks. Ping 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 ping, the sharp swords clashed, creating sparks from the friction. Kacha! With a crisp sound, a sharp sword broke into two, and then cries of surprise sounded out. His sword techniques are so powerful. In terms of sword techniques, I want to see whose sword techniques can surpass my sword pavilions. Move aside, I'll do it. A cold shout sounded out, and a sword light suddenly rose from the darkness like the rising sun, piercing people to the point that they couldn't open their eyes. In the next second, the glaring sword light disappeared, and everything returned to darkness. However, Tangjung could clearly feel a powerful sword intent rushing towards him. What a powerful sword technique! Tangjung was awestruck. This was the strongest sword technique he had ever seen in his life, and it was unknown how much more profound it was compared to Qin Lao's sword technique. At the same time, he firmly remembered the two words sword pavilion in his heart. He had never heard of these two words before, so he did not know what organization it was. Come on! Tangjung shouted, and the first to fourth moves of the sky-flying immortal sword technique were executed smoothly. In an instant, the sky pit was filled with sword light, and with the sound of explosions, the lights in everyone's hands completely exploded, and they fell into darkness again. Tang Zheng and his opponent exchanged a few moves in midair, and like a spring, they bounced off each other and disappeared into the darkness. In this confrontation, the two of them were evenly matched. Both of them could feel the strength of the other, especially in terms of attainments in the way of the sword. Everything fell into darkness again. The two of them were a few meters apart, and the sounds of fighting around them seemed to have disappeared. They only had eyes for each other. Although the darkness made it impossible for the two of them to see each other clearly, they could still feel each other's presence. "Who exactly are you?" the other party asked coldly. "And who are you?" Tang Zheng asked back. "Who taught you your swordsmanship? And who taught you your sword technique?" Tang Zheng asked. The two of them fell into a short period of silence. Obviously, they were very wary of each other, and neither of them was willing to reveal their confidence. "Then it seems that we can only know the answer after the victor is decided. Then let's see who is stronger and who is weaker." Tang Zheng's fighting spirit was aroused. With a tap of his foot he rushed out again. The Dark War Soul Sword seemed to have merged with the darkness. It was silent. If it was an ordinary person, they would not know that Tang Zheng had already made his move. However, the other party was not an ordinary person. By listening to the sound, the two of them already knew each other's position. When Tang Zheng made his move, the other party also made his move, and a thin long sword lit up. Yes, there was no light in the sky pit, but when he waved his sword, the sword's body lit up like a blazing sun, majestic and majestic. It was as if the sky pit had turned into a turbulent ocean. The others were like small boats in the ocean, drifting with the waves. A sense of powerlessness arose spontaneously. Sinosaurus smashed his opponent back with his hammer. He staggered and almost fell down. He could not help but exclaim, "Damn, this momentum is too great. OL3 is indeed valiant. OL3, do your best and defeat him." On the other hand, Marshall was able to deal with it with ease. Amongst these few opponents, other than the swordsman who was fighting against Tang Zheng, the rest were all weaker than her, so she was like a fish in water. She placed a lot of her attention on Tang Zheng and the mysterious swordsman. Even though she was usually quite conceited, she knew that she was not a match for this mysterious swordsman. Moreover, this person looked to be in his 30s, so he could be said to be a genius in using the sword. However, when she thought of the two words sword pavilion, she was not surprised that the other party's sword cultivation was so high. It was because he was from Sword Pavilion, and the people who came from Sword Pavilion were so powerful. Moreover, these people all used swords, which meant that they were all from Sword Pavilion. However, this swordsman was completely different from the others. The others could not be considered as successors of Sword Pavilion. They could only be considered as sword slaves. Even though they were sword slaves, compared to ordinary cultivators, they were still rare experts. From this, it could be seen how powerful and mysterious Sword Pavilion was. Sword Pavilion was not famous in the Jianghu because it was too mysterious. Ordinary people would not know about it. However, as the disciple of the martial origin sect master, Marshall naturally knew about Sword Pavilion. The people of Sword Pavilion were all sword cultivators, but there were only 3 true successors of Sword Pavilion. The others were all sword slaves. However, this was not the most famous thing about the Sword Pavilion. The most memorable thing about the Sword Pavilion was the owner of the Sword Pavilion. He was the famous sword god. The sword god loved swords as if they were his life, and he was obsessed with swords. Back then, he defeated countless experts and became the sword god. In the eyes of the world, there were people whose cultivation surpassed the sword god, but no one's sword cultivation surpassed his because he was the god of swords, the most supreme existence. The successor of Sword Pavilion was the disciple of Sword God. However, Sword God was very strict when it came to accepting disciples. He only had 3 direct disciples in total. One could see how lucky these 3 disciples were in the eyes of the world. They had Sword God's teachings, so one could imagine how profound Sword Tao was. The swordsman in front of her was one of the 3 disciples of the Sword God. Therefore, Marshall was not surprised that his sword cultivation was so high. The sword god has more than one set of sword techniques, and this person cultivates the sunrise sword technique. It is said that the sunrise sword technique is a profound sword technique that the sword god comprehended when he observed the rising sun. The sword technique takes the great path of the rising sun. It is masculine and domineering, but it does not lose its vitality. TSK. I wonder if Tang Zheng's heaven-flying immortal sword technique or the sunrise sword technique is better. Marshall thought silently. Heaven-flying immortal against the rising sun. Tang Zheng and the successor of Sword Pavilion seemed to have become two swords, clashing in the darkness and creating intense sparks. The rocks on the walls of the sky pit rustled and rolled down, as if it was raining rocks. The battle of the others came to an abrupt end. Marshall split open a falling rock with her palm and shouted, "This sky pit will not last long. It will collapse soon. Hurry up and get out." Seeing such a large formation, Sinosaurus was flabbergasted, but he did not have the heart to continue fighting. He replied, "I'll be out soon." The tip of his foot tapped on the wall, and used both his hands and feet to climb up. He was like a gecko, but his speed was not slow. "Hurry up." The successor of Sword Pavilion was worried about the safety of the sword servant, and ordered loudly. The sword servant's figure flashed. Using his sword as a ladder, he scuttled up. His speed was much faster than Sinosaurus's giant gecko. Of course, the speed of these people was not as fast as Marshall. When Marshall was the first to stand outside the natural crater, he attacked the sword servant that was following closely behind. With a miserable cry, the sword servant fell into the natural crater, and turned into minced meat with a bang. Following the same pattern, every time a sword servant came up, Marshall would rely on the advantage of geography and her own strength to kill them one by one. Not long after, no sword servant dared to come out. Everyone knew that there was a demoness above who killed without blinking. If they came out, they would die. But hiding in there was not a long-term plan, because Sinosaurus the giant gecko had climbed up. The mountain-shattering meteor hammer fiercely smashed on the wall of the pit, causing sand and rocks to fly. The wall that a person was holding onto crumbled, and began a free fall. There was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. This group of sword servants was suffering. Moreover, the sounds of fighting in the sky pit were becoming more and more intense. The sky pit was in danger of collapsing at any time. At that time, if they were buried alive, they would not be able to survive. Go all-out charge. A sword servant gnashed his teeth and roared. He used all his strength to rush up into the sky. He waved the long sword in his hand, determined to fight for a glimmer of hope. But what welcomed him was Marshall's merciless attack. With a plop he fell down. Bang bang bang. Marshall was like playing whack-a-mole, slapping down every sword servant that came out. Boom. Suddenly, a loud sound rang out. The sky pit collapsed and dust rose up. Marshall stood alone on the ground, looking at the sky pit that was covered in dust. Her expression slightly changed and she shouted, "Tangzheng, Sinosaurus, where are you?" Chapter 581. Bang. A few rocks soared into the sky from the smoke and dust, and a burst of violent coughing sounded out. Damn, I was almost buried alive. Fortunately, I was lucky enough, and the mountain-shattering meteor hammer was powerful enough, so I was able to rush out of the sky pit. Sinosaurus muttered to himself with lingering fear. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Sinosaurus saw a person standing in front of him. He could not help but be startled and exclaim, "Why are you alone? Where's third brother?" Marshall looked at the ruins of the sky pit. Do Long immediately looked down at his feet, and was dumbstruck. "You're saying that OL3 was buried alive?" Marshall did not comment, but his expression had already answered this question. She had originally thought that Tang Zheng would definitely rush out unscathed, but reality proved that she was wrong. If he's dead, then what about master and mistress? She panicked and immediately rushed towards the ruins, trying to break through the layers of obstacles to save Tang Zheng. Suddenly, a loud sound rang out as a huge mountain rock soared into the sky. Sinosaurus screamed and immediately jumped out of the ruins, looking at this scene in disbelief. So, Two figures soared into the sky along with the huge rock. Sword lights clashed in midair, causing intense sparks to fly. Bang! 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 A loud sound rang out, and the two of them were like two huge rocks smashing into the ground, sending pieces of gravel flying. They stood facing each other, their eyes shining as they looked at each other. Their gaze is not friendly. Your sword technique is actually so powerful. The successor of the sword pavilion exclaimed. He had never seen such a powerful sword technique in his life, and he really did not know when such a powerful sword technique had appeared in this world. Tang Jing chuckled. You're not bad either. Someone from the sword pavilion. I presume that the sword pavilion is related to the famous sword god? Marshall looked at Tang Jing in astonishment, marveling at his reasoning ability. He actually guessed all of this from the sword pavilion and this person's sword technique. The successor of the sword pavilion was also surprised and asked, "Who are you? Why do you know so much?" Of course, Tang Jing didn't just rely on his deduction. When Tian Chanzi had fought with Sword God, he had mentioned it to him. Therefore, he knew how powerful Sword God's swordsmanship was. Although he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he still felt a sense of familiarity with the swordsmanship described by Tian Chanzi. Seeing his reaction, Tang Jing knew that he had guessed right. He said, "Your sword art is much better than the others. Could it be that you are the successor of the sword god?" You guessed right, the sword pavilion master is the sword god, and this person is one of the three great disciples of the sword god. The sword god has a total of 3 mysterious disciples, namely greed, destruction and 7 kills, but I wonder which one is this? Marshall interrupted. The successor of the sword pavilion was instantly moved. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Marshall saying, "You are so young, but your cultivation is not low. Who are you?" Marshall smiled faintly. The sword pavilion is unheard of among ordinary people, but I have heard many rumors about it. Moreover, there are many rumors about your master, the sword god. Back then, he was extremely famous, but in recent years, he has restrained himself. I don't know what he is doing. Obviously, martial arts information was more abundant and accurate than the sword pavilion. The sword pavilion had a super expert like the sword god, so why was it not included in the 3 great organizations? In fact, there were many reasons for this. The sword pavilion was not big, and although it had sword slaves, it was not many. It could not be compared to the 3 great organizations. In addition, the sword pavilion was very low-key, and it was very difficult to find its whereabouts in the Jianghu. Since you know about the sword pavilion, then you should know how powerful it is. Today, 7 kills have killed so many sword slaves. If I don't ask for an explanation, how can I explain it to my master? So you are 7 kills. I have heard a lot about you. In this world, there are not many people who have seen 7 kills' true appearance. Marshall laughed. 7 kills coldly snorted and said, "Because most of the people who have seen it are already dead." The sword pavilion has always kept a low profile, and basically does not care about the affairs of the world. Why did they come to the Changbai mountain this time? Furthermore, they are looking for some rare treasures. This is truly strange. Marshall said doubtfully. 7 kills' expression turned cold as he said, "The sword pavilion's actions are not something you can casually guess." However, Tang Jing was also slightly moved. There must be a demon behind this abnormality. The mysterious sword pavilion had entered this mountain to search for rare treasures, which meant that this matter was not simple. As for how the sword pavilion found out that there were so many treasures hidden in the mountain, that was even more of a secret. These rare treasures were related to the magic treasure, so Tang Jing could not let his guard down. Moreover, the other party had already found one, so it was even more necessary to get to the bottom of it. But asking like this would obviously not lead to any results, so Tang Jing did not want to waste his breath. He pointed Battle Soul forward, the sword pointed at 7 kills, and said in a cold voice, "Just now was just a warm-up. Now is the main course. I think we can determine the victor now." Tang Jing could not see through the other party's cultivation, so the other party was at least a 7th grade Xiantian warrior. However, Tang Jing was not worried because he was confident that he would win. He still had a trump card that he had not used yet. Of course, the trump card was not the Four Symbols Venerables. Summoning the Four Symbols Venerables would cause too much of a commotion. There were still people from the Sword Pavilion in the mountain forest. If the commotion was too great, it would attract other people, or even the Sword God. Even if Tang Zheng had the Four Symbols Venerables, he still did not have the confidence to win. One had to know that the Sword God had once fought with Tian Chanzi, and Tian Chanzi was not stingy with his praise. This was enough to show how high the Sword God's cultivation in the Sword Dao was. Moreover, if he used the Four Symbols Venerables to deal with the Sword Pavilion's successor, then Tang Zheng felt that he was making a mountain out of a molehill. 7 kills had exchanged more than 100 moves with Tang Zheng, and had already guessed Tang Zheng's strength. Although the latter's cultivation in the Sword Dao was high, it was on par with his own. One had to know that his Rising Sun sword art had already reached perfection. He did not believe that he could deal with Tang Zheng's mysterious sword art. Back then, when he had taken the Sword God as his teacher, he had taken the initiative to choose this Rising Sun sword art. This sword art was indeed a perfect fit for him, and his sword arts had improved by leaps and bounds. He was only 30 years old, but this sword art had already reached perfection. Even the Sword God had praised him before. I want to determine the victor, and let you know that the Sword Pavilion's successor is not just for show. 7 kills said resolutely. Swoosh. He raised his hand and swung his sword down. Even though it was broad daylight, the light on the sword was incomparably bright. It carried the might of the rising sun and attacked Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. He made a feint and blocked the sword. With a thought, a powerful Yin Qi rushed out from the War Spirit sword, and a huge monster pounced toward 7 kills. War Spirit. The War Spirit that had been sealed in the War Spirit sword was released by Tang Zheng. The War Spirit had been silent in the sword for too long, and Tang Zheng wanted to let it see the light of day again. Roar. The War Spirit roared towards the sky, and the Yin Qi in the forest was crazily absorbed by him. Then his body became more and more condensed, just like a real person, except that his body was a little bigger. When Sinosaurus saw the War Spirit, he was frightened and quickly retreated. He cried out in horror. What kind of monster is this? The War Spirit was condensed from a ghost, and its face was somewhat sinister. Furthermore, it was too tall, and its body was surrounded by Yin Qi, emitting traces of black qi. Its appearance was indeed not very good, but it was enough to scare people. 7 kills also trembled as he stared at the huge monster. Just now he had seen the War Spirit fly out from Tang Zheng's sword with his own eyes, so the identity of the opponent was obvious. He looked at Tang Zheng in horror and asked, "You are a cultivator? We have been fighting for so long, and you only reacted now. Isn't your reaction a little too slow?" Tang Zheng said jokingly. "A cultivator dares to be so brazen. You are really daring. Today, I will let you know the position of a cultivator in this world. Since you have entered the wrong camp, then you have to tuck your tail between your legs." 7 kills' eyes burst out with a bright light. The rare treasure that he had found this time was related to cultivators, so his master had already warned him to pay attention to the whereabouts of cultivators. Today he had coincidentally met a cultivator, and of course he would not let him go. If he caught him and handed him to his master, it would be a great merit. Suddenly, his heart was restless, and he was even more determined to deal with Tang Zheng. However, the most important thing now was to deal with this huge monster. The War Spirit beat its chest and kept roaring, its voice shaking the surroundings. Then, with a tiger's pounce, it directly pounced on 7 kills. 7 kills did not retreat an inch, and the long sword in his hand danced with flowing light, intertwining with each other. It was so tight that the War Spirit could not get close to him. Pung pung pung. The War Soul's fist smashed into the sword light again and again, causing the sword light to tremble incessantly. Every time the War Soul's fist smashed into the sword light, the sword light's fist would be cut in half. However, the War Soul would heal the wound with lightning speed, and its fighting strength was still off the charts. The War Spirit was like a tireless machine, punching again and again. Finally, with a crack, the sword light in front of 7 kills was destroyed. The War Spirit pounced on him, But 7 Kills did not panic and stabbed out with his sword. Puff! The long sword pierced through the war spirit's chest and came out from its back. However, the war spirit did not seem to feel any pain, and its expression did not change. It stretched out its big hand and grabbed at 7 Kills' head. If it hit, his head would explode into a bloody mess. At the critical moment of life and death, Qisha finally understood that this colossus was not as simple as he had imagined, so he hurriedly retreated. However, just as he took a step back, he cried out in his heart, because even though Tang Zheng was standing in front of him, there seemed to be something waiting for him behind him, causing him to feel uneasy. His senses were very sharp. With a flash of light, a snake-like rope wrapped around his waist and quickly wrapped around his arms. After a while, he was tied up by the rope like a big dumpling. There was no doubt that this was the power of the dragon trapping rope. Tang Zheng used the war spirit to attract the opponent's attention and calculated the opponent's movements and position. Then he used the dragon trapping rope to wait for the rabbit. Naturally, he caught the rabbit. Tang Zheng had no choice but to use such a strategy. This way he could capture the opponent with the least commotion. Otherwise, with the opponent's strength, if he wanted to capture him alive, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Wouldn't that be inviting help? Tang Zheng was not that stupid. Chapter 582. Qisha, now we can have a good talk. Ignoring Qisha's furious gaze, Tang Zheng smirked. Since when did a cultivator of your level appear in this world? Who are you? Qisha asked, gritting his teeth. You seem to be my captive right now. Of course, I should be the one asking you questions, not you. Otherwise, you will be in great pain. As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon trapping rope flashed and Qisha's bones cracked. Qisha's face twisted in pain as he screamed. After a while, the scream stopped. Qisha's veins were bulging and he was sweating profusely. How is it? It doesn't feel good, does it? Tang Zheng sneered. No matter what you ask, I will not tell you. Qisha's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he clenched his teeth and refused to back down. Haha, you have quite a backbone. No wonder you are the sword god's disciple. Tang Zheng purposely praised him. Qisha raised his head proudly when he heard the word backbone. Tang Zheng sneered and changed the topic. He pretended to casually add, this time, your sword Garrett's large-scale operation must be led by your master, right? Of course, Qisha said without hesitation. But as soon as the words left his mouth, he suddenly realized that he had fallen into Tang Zheng's trap. He had clearly said that he would not answer any of Tang Zheng's questions, but he had inadvertently fallen into Tang Zheng's trap. You despicable! Qisha roared in anger. Tang Zheng did not mind and smiled faintly. He thought that although these disciples of the sword Garrett were outstanding in the way of the sword, there was clearly something wrong with their heads. It was so easy for him to get information out of them. This information was undoubtedly very important to him. If the sword god was not in Changbai, then he could go all out. But since the sword god had come as well, then he had to be careful. Especially since he'd captured the sword god's outstanding disciple and annihilated those sword servants. 7 Kills gritted his teeth in hatred. He rolled his eyes and said fiercely, Master is in the Changbai Mountains. He'll be looking for you soon. When that time comes, I'll see what use your insignificant magic can be. Perhaps my magic is really useless, but the rare treasures that your sword pavilion is looking for are all used by cultivators. What use do you have for them? Tang Zheng asked suspiciously. I fell into your trap just now. Do you think I'll still answer your question? 7 Kills asked mockingly. Tang Zheng didn't think much of it. Looks like you're not stupid. 7 Kills snorted coldly and looked death in the eye as he said, If you want to kill me or torture me, do as you please. Don't even think about trying to get information out of me. 7 Kills looked resolute and did not show any signs of wavering. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. 7 Kills was a stubborn person. It would not be easy to get more information out of him. However, Tang Zheng was not willing to give up just like that. Sword Pavilion's operation this time was definitely not simple. He had to figure out the whole story. Marshall looked at Tang Zheng mockingly. Seeing him suffer, she felt an indescribable sense of pleasure. What, are you out of tricks? Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to her words. His eyes flickered. Sinosaurus, however, could not bear to see his brother suffer. He quickly volunteered. Third brother, let me do it. I want to see if his bones are harder than my mountain-shattering meteor hammer. Mountain-shattering meteor hammer. 7 Kill's pupils shrank as he stared at the weapon in Sinosaurus's hand. He remembered seeing a pit in the heavenly pit with the help of the light. Its shape was very similar to the mountain-shattering meteor hammer. Your mountain-shattering meteor hammer was found in the heavenly pit, right? 7 Kills asked loudly. Sinosaurus subconsciously pulled the mountain-shattering meteor hammer closer to his chest and asked, "What does that have to do with you?" Hearing this, 7 Kills was 100% sure that his guess was correct. He was overjoyed. After searching for so long, he had finally found a rare treasure. Brat, let me tell you, the mountain-shattering meteor hammer is not an ordinary magic weapon. With your little ability, you can only possess it. You will only bring disaster to yourself. Sinosaurus angrily glared at him and said, Hey, what nonsense are you talking about? What disaster? I have the time meteor hammer. If God blocks me, I will kill God. If Buddha blocks me, I will kill Buddha. Why would I be afraid of a disaster? Humph, ignorant. 7 Kills disdainfully said, Do you think the mountain-shattering meteor hammer is so simple? Sinosaurus suddenly had an idea and took the opportunity to ask, Then tell me, what is so special about it? 7 Kills was about to speak, but suddenly closed his mouth and said, You want to trick me again? Let me tell you, it's not that easy. I won't be fooled. Sinosaurus angrily roared, and was about to swing the mountain-shattering meteor hammer to smash the other into pieces when he was quickly stopped by Tang Zheng. Third brother, let go of me. This person has become a prisoner, but he is still so arrogant. It's too infuriating. If I don't teach him a lesson, he won't be honest. Sinosaurus angrily said. Tang Zheng patted him on the shoulder and said, Calm down. Then, he rolled his eyes and said meaningfully, Since you value the mountain-shattering meteor hammer so much, then this mountain-shattering meteor hammer must be more powerful than the treasure you found before. Nonsense. How can the mountain-shattering meteor hammer be mentioned in the same breath as the sword spirit? 7 Kills immediately retorted. Sword spirit. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. What is the sword spirit? 7 Kills widened his eyes and exclaimed, You are trying to trick me again. You are too cunning. Hee, if you don't say it, then I can only squeeze a little bit of toothpaste. Tang Zheng coldly laughed. 7 Kills had already realized that the more he spoke, the more likely he would make a mistake. In terms of words, he was no match for Tang Zheng, so it was better not to say anything. He angrily snorted and then did not say a word. He only looked hatefully at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was not willing to give up, so he used all his tricks to lure the other to speak. However, the other had already suffered a few losses and had thoroughly learned his lesson. He would not be tricked again. Tang Zheng was at his wits' end as he unwillingly gave a cold snort, thinking that this sword spirit was even more powerful than the mountain-shattering meteor hammer. Moreover, it was clear that the other party knew the origin of the mountain-shattering meteor hammer, so he must find a way to get to the bottom of it. Marshall coldly laughed and said, Since you can't get anything out of him, then just kill him. Why waste your breath? Kill. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. 7 Kills was an enemy, and he had never been merciful to his enemies. However, if he directly killed him, then wouldn't all the clues be cut off? He thought hard and frowned. Looking at 7 Kills' provocative eyes, he was not angry. Instead, he was abnormally calm. Killing the other party was very simple, but the key was to know the information. Suddenly, he had an idea. He pretended to be angry and said, 7 Kills, do you want to die so easily? You are thinking too simply. In a moment, I will make you beg for death. 7 Kills was unmoved. He disdainfully laughed and said, Whatever you have, just come at me. Then you just wait. I guarantee that you will never forget it. Tang Zheng grabbed 7 Kills, sealed his acupoints, removed the dragon trapping rope, and ran down the mountain. The other two did not know what he was thinking, so they could only follow. In front of them was a lake, which was completely covered by ice and snow. Just now they had directly passed through the ice. Therefore, the four of them continued to walk through the layer of ice. When they reached the center of the lake, Tang Zheng stepped down and the layer of ice let out a cracking sound. With a gulu sound, Tang Zheng and Qi Sha disappeared from the surface of the ice. A huge hole appeared in the ice. It seemed that Tang Zheng had used too much force and directly shattered the ice. Tang Zheng exclaimed and subconsciously let go of 7 kills in his hand, and struggled to swim upstream. Whoosh, he finally came out of the water, but his hands were empty. There was no sign of 7 kills. Seeing this, Sinosaurus was shocked and said, "Where is 7 kills? How did he disappear?" When he entered the water, he slipped. I don't know where he landed. However, don't worry. I sealed his acupoints and he can't move in the ice water. He will definitely die, Tang Zheng said confidently and loudly. This voice was like a loudspeaker, spreading to every corner of the lake under the ice. Marshall frowned and looked suspiciously at Tang Zheng, not knowing why he spoke so loudly. Sinosaurus did not think of this and nodded. That makes sense. If he can't move, he will definitely die in this ice hole. But it's a pity that I didn't get much useful information from him. Let's go, Tang Zheng urged. The three of them quickly left the lake. Tang Zheng quickly grabbed Sinosaurus. Second brother, stop. What's wrong? Let's watch a good show. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. Marshall finally realized and said, "You deliberately broke the ice and let him fall in. This is deliberately giving him a chance to escape. No wonder you said those words so loudly." Tang Zheng gave a thumbs up and praised, "Smart, you even noticed this." Sinosaurus slapped his head and exclaimed in a low voice, "Third brother, you are really too cunning. No, too smart. This move of casting a long line to catch a big fish is too amazing." Casting a long line to catch a big fish. This was Tang Zheng's strategy. Since he couldn't get any useful information, he would change his method. He had purposely only temporarily sealed the other party's acupoints. As long as the other party tried his best to break through the acupoints, he would be able to regain his freedom. When he heard that Tang Zheng had left, he would definitely seize this opportunity to escape. Furthermore, he would definitely report this information to the Sword God immediately. Following the map, Tang Zheng would be able to find the Sword God. Although he was afraid of the Sword God's strength, the other party was in the light and he was in the dark. As long as he hid well, he wouldn't have to worry about being discovered by the Sword God. Then he would have a chance to find out the other party's purpose for coming here, as well as the secrets he was hiding. In addition, Tang Zheng was also very interested in the mysterious sword spirit. A treasure that was even more precious than the mountain-shattering meteor hammer could indeed move Tang Zheng. One had to know that the mountain-shattering meteor hammer was a heaven-level magic treasure, so the sword spirit was definitely not inferior to it. Chapter 583. Kacha. A layer of ice at the edge of the lake broke, and a wet person climbed onto the shore. He looked around, but didn't find anyone suspicious. He shook off the water that had almost frozen into ice on his body and hurriedly circulated his energy. A burst of dense qi rose from his body. In the blink of an eye, the clothes on his body were completely dried by the power. This man was Qi Sha, who had survived the disaster. He looked fiercely in the direction where Tang Zheng had disappeared and gnashed his teeth. He thought to himself, "When I find my master, I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life." Whoosh! He turned into a shadow and shuttled through the forest like a cheetah. However, he didn't notice that the three people were following him like ghosts. Wu turned his head and looked at Tang Zheng, as if silently praising his wise decision. The plan of casting a long line to catch a big fish had been carried out smoothly. Qi Sha headed north, toward the depths of the Changbai mountain. Sinosaurus followed the two closely and whispered, "The depths of the mountain are forbidden to us hunters." In the past, there were hunters who went to explore the depths of the mountain, but they often didn't return. Later, it was said that there were ferocious beasts and monsters, so no hunter dared to set foot there again. Tang Zheng looked at the trees that were getting taller and taller, and the snow that was already as tall as a person. It was clear that this was not a good place. This place was already considered deserted, but Qi Sha still didn't stop. It was as if he was stepping on snow without leaving a trace, only leaving shallow footprints on the white snow. Snow was falling from the sky, and soon, these footprints were covered by the white snow. Nature was the best at hiding people's tracks. This was also useful for Tang Zheng and the other two. They fell far away, and their tracks were perfectly covered. Suddenly, a cliff appeared in front of them. In this world of white snow, this cliff was particularly eye-catching. There was a cave on the cliff, but there were already many people with swords standing in front of the cliff. These people were sword slaves of the sword pavilion. They were all expressionless, like puppets, and vigilantly observed their surroundings. 7 kills stopped in front of the cliff, and the sword slaves all bowed to him. Then he glanced up, and with a tap of his foot, he soared into the air along the cliff as if he was climbing a ladder. He arrived in front of the cave, and quickly disappeared into the cave. Tang Zheng raised his palm. The three of them stopped at the same time, and looked at the heavily guarded cliff and cave from afar. They couldn't help but look at each other, and see the surprise and doubt in each other's eyes. He was happy that he had finally found the whereabouts of Sword Pavilion, but he was suspicious of why Sword Pavilion had gathered here. We outnumber them. What should we do? Could it be that a group of people would charge forward? Even if the sword god doesn't make a move, I'm afraid we won't be able to bear the consequences. Marshall said worriedly. What's there to be afraid of? That 7 kills wasn't Third Brother's match. And these sword slaves are even less of a match. Sinosaurus was bursting with confidence in Tang Zheng, so he spoke indifferently. Marshall rolled his eyes. The ignorant were truly fearless. Of course, Tang Zheng knew that his second brother was taking things for granted. It was easy to say, but not easy to do. You guys stay here. I'll go check it out. Tang Zheng muttered to himself and said. You're going alone? Wouldn't that be like a sheep entering a tiger's den? Sinosaurus immediately rejected him, shaking his head like a rattledrum. Marshall said without any explanation, I'll go with you. Although she would usually look forward to Tang Zheng embarrassing himself, at the critical moment of life and death, she would still stand together with Tang Zheng without hesitation. This was a matter of right and wrong. How could it be a child's play? Tang Zheng knew what the two of them were thinking and hurriedly comforted them. Listen to me. It's safer for me to go alone because I know illusions. With that, Tang Zheng disappeared in front of the two of them. Ah! Sinosaurus exclaimed and hurriedly covered his mouth, but his round eyes betrayed the shock in his heart. A strange expression flashed across Wu's face as he remained silent. OL3, this illusion technique is too awesome. Leave it to me in the future. If you go and peek at a beauty taking a bath, you won't even be caught. Sinosaurus exclaimed. Marshall immediately frowned, killing intent jumping in his eyes. Sinosaurus felt a chill on his neck and immediately shrunk his neck, saying embarrassedly, I'm joking, don't take it seriously. Tang Zheng helplessly rolled his eyes at him and continued. The sword god is most likely in the cave, so I used the illusion technique to investigate. And the two of you are not doing nothing. You have to monitor the surroundings. If you encounter any trouble later, you have to help me. Marshall was hesitant. The order she received was to protect Tang Zheng, but this time, she was clearly going against the order. However, Tang Zheng's words were reasonable, so she could not refute them. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame herself for not knowing how to use illusions. Sinosaurus gladly accepted the decision and immediately hid in the snow at the side. Using the natural camouflage of the snow, he stared at the cliff and the cave without blinking. Tang Zheng gave him a thumbs up. Although OL3 was not serious at times, but at the critical moment, he did things cleanly and nimbly, not dragging his feet. Wuxia stared at Tang Zheng, and when their eyes met, Tang Zheng was not willing to be outdone. After a long while, Wu finally lost and muttered, All right, but if there is any danger, immediately escape. We will help you. Tang Zheng made an okay gesture, and truly used the illusion technique. In that instant his figure floated, and in the blink of an eye, He completely disappeared in front of everyone, as if he was air. He's gone. After Tang Zheng said this, the surroundings became completely silent. After a long while, Sinosaurus asked in bewilderment, "Did he leave?" Marshall snappily said, "Of course he left." Tang Zheng was like a ghost as he silently appeared in front of the cliff, facing the sword servant, but the sword servant still did not notice him. Tang Zheng was rather confident in his illusions. If he was unable to hide his tracks in front of these ordinary warriors, then his cultivation would have been wasted. However, he did not dare guarantee that his illusions would be effective in front of the sword god. After all, the sword god's cultivation was too high, and ordinary techniques might not be effective. He did not swagger, but carefully walked to the entrance of the cave. As soon as he entered, his eyes lit up. One by one, the sword servants stood at the entrance like sharp swords, each with a sword on their back, ready to attack. As long as they found any intruders, they would definitely kill them without mercy. Tang Zheng was calm. His emotions did not fluctuate in the slightest as he walked past these sword servants. The cave was not deep, and after walking for a while, it suddenly opened up. The mountain rock above his head disappeared, and was replaced by a huge sky pit. Yes, this cave was actually connected to a sky pit. This sky pit was not deep, so there was plenty of light, no different from daytime. But at this moment, Tang Zheng's attention was completely attracted by a scene in the middle of the sky pit. A white skeleton sat in the middle of the sky pit, and above its head floated a ray of light. The light would occasionally pulsate, and when it pulsated, a sharp sword intent would fill the entire sky pit. Tang Zheng really wanted to suck in a breath of cold air. This sword intent was too pure, several times purer than the sword intent he and Qisha had released. It was so strong that it made one's heart palpitate. Moreover, that pulsating light was like a short sword, but it was completely condensed from light, and was not a real sword. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng's mind went blank, and then two words quickly jumped into his mind. Sword spirit. Yes, even though no one introduced the origin of this ray of light, Tang Zheng was able to determine its true appearance. Tang Zheng had long been used to this kind of inexplicable mysterious feeling. This was definitely the effect of Qiyu's heart. Qiyu's heart contained thousands of messages, and every time it was triggered, it would appear in his mind. The sword spirit in front of him had obviously met the triggering conditions, and a message followed closely behind. Qisha had said that the sword spirit was more precious than the mountain-shattering meteor hammer, and Tang Zheng had doubted it. After all, the mountain-shattering meteor hammer was already a heaven-grade magic treasure. But now that he saw the true appearance of the sword spirit, he did not doubt the authenticity of these words at all. This was because the sword spirit could no longer be measured by the grade of a magic treasure. It could not be considered a magic treasure, but the soul in the sword. There were many possibilities hidden in the sword spirit, and there was no fixed pattern. As long as it was used properly, it could unleash extraordinary power. This was a supreme existence to the two people who practiced the sword. This sword spirit was left behind after a divine sword was destroyed in the past, but the sword spirit did not dissipate. The sword spirit from ancient times had traveled through billions of years, and was left behind until now. Moreover, it was still so powerful, which was enough to prove its original power and value. No wonder even the noble sword god covets the sword spirit so much, because its use is too great. I must obtain the sword spirit, and when the sword spirit is injected into the war soul sword, the war soul sword will undergo a qualitative change, and be reborn, just like a mortal becoming an immortal, and the war soul sword will also have the sword spirit, which is why it can be called a good sword. Tang Zheng became excited. This temptation was big enough. This time he had actually caught such a big fish. It was worth celebrating. In addition, who was that skeleton? Why was there a sword spirit floating above its head? Could it be that this person was a sword master when he was alive? However, this was not a problem that he needed to consider right now. He was not arrogant enough to directly rush up and snatch it. This was because his attention was attracted by another person. This person was thin and not tall. He was an old man with a white face and no beard, but his face could not be considered handsome. It was even a little ugly, and his legs seemed to be disabled. One of his feet was high while the other was low. This image was too inferior. If he did not see him in the sky pit, he would definitely think that he was an ordinary old man. However, seeing how respectful and careful 7 Kills was in front of the other party, Tang Zheng immediately realized the other party's true colors. Sword God, the famous sword god actually looks like this. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes, unable to accept this result. In his impression, the sword god was definitely a peerless divine sword. How could he be such an old man? It completely overturned the image of the sword god. Chapter 584. There were 2 people standing in the sinkhole, Sword God and Qi Sha. 7 Kills stood respectfully in front of the sword god and recounted what had happened to him. The sword god put his hands behind his back and stared at the sword spirit hovering above Whitebone's head. His eyes were burning. When 7 Kills finished speaking, he turned his head and stared at 7 Kills. He asked, "You're saying that the opponent's sword Dao cultivation is very high? His sword art is very mysterious?" Yes. Qi Sha nodded. He knew that his teacher was obsessed with the sword and would not ignore such a mysterious sword art. Even the rising sun sword art could not defeat him? Sword God asked again. Qi Sha said with shame, "This disciple is useless. I did not understand the essence of the rising sun sword art." Sword God shook his head. "Wrong. You already understood the essence of the rising sun sword art. It was just that the opponent's sword art was too mysterious, so you lost." Qi Sha's heart skipped a beat. Didn't this mean that the rising sun sword art was not as profound as the opponent's sword art? His master had always been very confident in his swordsmanship, but he actually admitted this on his own accord. This was too inconceivable. Sword God ignored his disciple's shock and said, "According to your description, I seem to have guessed the origin of the opponent's sword art." "What origin?" Sword God's eyes flashed with a look of reminiscence. He said, "A cultivator called Tian Chanzi. This person is his disciple." Tian Chanzi. 7 Kills' pupils couldn't help but widen. There was a period of time last year when it was the darkest for the sword pavilion, because the sword god's sword technique actually lost to a mysterious cultivator called Heaven Monk, and he was even injured. To the people of the sword pavilion, this was no different from a sudden clap of thunder. Many people were indignant, thinking that the Heaven Monk must have used some sort of scheme to win against the sword god. But sword god kept it a secret and did not talk about it in detail. No one knew the details. The cultivator that Qi Sha met this time was Tian Chanzi's disciple. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Qi Sha's eyes were filled with killing intent. He gritted his teeth and said, "This disciple is useless. I did not kill this person to avenge my teacher. When did I need you to stand up for me? I've lost face, and I'll get it back on my own. Besides, so what if I killed Tian Chanzi's disciple? This is only a method used by the weak. In fact, it doesn't have any substantial meaning," Sword God unexpectedly said. 7 Kills shivered. He understood that this was his master's usual style, but he still couldn't help but feel resentment. After all, his master had been defeated by Tian Chanzi, and even he had been defeated by Tian Chanzi's disciple. Could it be that his master and disciple were so unlucky that they would be forcibly suppressed like this? The sword god didn't care about his disciple's thoughts. Instead, he looked at the sword spirit with eager eyes and said, "As long as I fuse with the sword spirit, I will definitely be able to create a peerless divine sword. At that time, even if I face Tian Chanzi again, I am confident that I will be able to suppress him in the way of the sword." Qi Sha understood and said excitedly, "Then the heavens are truly helping Master. After going through so much danger, we finally obtain the sword spirit. That Tian Chanzi won't be Master's opponent in the future." The sword god laughed crazily. Tang Zheng's illusion technique wasn't seen through. He stood at the edge of the sinkhole, motionless as he listened to the conversation between the master and disciple. When he heard that the other party had seen through his identity, Tang Zheng was slightly moved. This sword god was indeed worthy of his reputation. Just from a few words, he was able to recognize the heaven-flying immortal sword technique. Humph, you've met me and you still want to obtain the sword spirit. How can there be such a good thing? Tang Zheng sneered as he stared at the sword spirit. If the battle spirit sword absorbs the sword spirit, its quality will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Yes, this sword spirit must not fall into the hands of the sword god. I have to find a way to get it. The sword god and his disciple didn't know that someone had already lurked beside them. 7 Kills couldn't wait and said, Master, then you should fuse with the sword spirit now, so as to avoid any more trouble. The sword god let out a long sigh and said, This sword spirit has just broken free from its shackles, and is full of sword intent. It is extremely aggressive, and it is not easy to fuse with it at this moment. Master, there are really so many rare treasures in the 100,000 mountains. Why don't we just go to the 100,000 mountains, and instead look for this escape? 7 Kills asked doubtfully. There is 100 transformations Star Lord in the 100,000 mountains. This person is mysterious and unfathomable. If we rashly enter the 100,000 mountains, it is very likely that we will not be able to return. The sword god explained. 7 Kills' heart trembled. Just who was this 100 transformations Star Lord? Even his master was so afraid of him. However, this was truly a pity that he couldn't personally go to the 100,000 mountains. Previously, there was an unforeseen event in the 100,000 mountains, and the restrictions were completely broken. These rare treasures broke free from their restraints and flew out of the 100,000 mountains, wandering all over Wuxia. This Changbai mountain is one of the places, and it took us a long time to confirm this point. That's why we spent so much effort to search for it. As expected, the heavens do not let us down and we found it. The sword god sighed. When Tang Zheng heard this, he was shocked. He knew that the restrictions on the 100,000 mountains had been removed, but he didn't know that so many rare treasures had flowed out of the 100,000 mountains. Who knew how many divine weapons from the ancient era were buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb? Back then, Tang Zheng didn't even have the time to search for treasures, but who would have thought that these treasures would actually run out and benefit the sword god? Since it's a treasure from the 100,000 mountains, then it's even more impossible for the sword god to take advantage of it. He had contributed greatly to the disappearance of the restrictions on the 100,000 mountains, so how could he let the enemy take advantage of him? Then why did these rare treasures fall into the sky cavern? Could there be a reason for this? 7 Kills asked like a curious child. The sword god shook his head. I don't know for now. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He had almost overlooked this question. Could it be that there really was a mysterious reason behind this? But Qi Yu's heart did not give him an answer this time, so he could only suppress this thought in his heart for the time being. Since the sword god had said that the sword soul was overflowing with sword intent, was extremely aggressive, and was not easy to fuse with, then Tang Zheng did not have to worry about the sword soul falling into the hands of the sword god for the time being. However, another problem was placed in front of him. Since even the sword god was unable to do anything to the sword soul, what could he do? Looking at the rare treasures with his own eyes, but being unable to use them for himself, this kind of pain and torture was not good at all. Just as he was deep in thought, suddenly, a loud sword hum sounded out from above the sky cavern. Sword god and 7 Kills' expressions changed at the same time, and said, Someone is coming. The sword god did not move and ordered 7 Kills. Go and send them away. Yes, master. 7 Kills accepted the order and leaped up. He stepped on the inner wall of the sky cavern and climbed up the sky cavern, disappearing without a trace. Tang Zheng did not chase after him, but stared at the sword god. The sword god walked around the sword soul, and his expression kept changing. Suddenly, he pulled out the sword at his waist. This was a wooden sword, plain and dull. It did not have a scabbard, and it was casually inserted at his waist. Ordinary people who saw this wooden sword would think that it was not a threat at all, and could only be used as firewood. However, Tang Zheng definitely did not think so. The sword that the sword god wore so solemnly was definitely not simple. Even if it was just a wooden sword, he was not wrong. This wooden sword was more famous than most of the famous swords in the world. and it was famous because of its owner. The sword god had used this wooden sword to defeat countless masters and reap countless lives. In the hands of the sword god, even a blade of grass or a tree was a divine weapon to kill people. The name of this sword was nameless, because it did not have a name at the beginning. It was just a piece of wood that the sword god found when he was young, and he polished it into a sword again and again. Then, an inconspicuous boy wielded a nameless wooden sword and defeated all obstacles, weathering countless winters and summers to create the illustrious name of the nameless sword. With the nameless sword in hand, the sword god walked around the sword soul even faster. Wang. With a sword hum, the nameless sword stabbed at the sword soul. Pung. A powerful sword, intense sword from the sword soul. The sword god took a step back, and the sword soul's pulsing light became even brighter. He glanced at the nameless sword in his hand, and then at the undamaged sword soul. He knew that his test had not succeeded. The nameless sword had not fused with the sword soul. Strange, how can I fuse with this sword soul? No matter how difficult it is, what do I have to fear? The sword god coldly shouted. Shwa, shwa shwa, he stabbed 3 times in succession. Fast. It was too fast. Tang Zheng did not even see his movements clearly. The 3 swords stabbed at the sword soul in one go. The nameless sword pressed against the sword soul. It shook violently and retreated an inch, but the second sword arrived in an instant and rebounded a bit more. When the third sword hit the sword soul, the nameless sword completely negated the rebounding force and accurately pressed against the sword soul. The sword soul's light immediately enveloped the nameless sword, and the world was filled with terrifying sword intent. The sword god's eyes widened, and he shouted in pleasant surprise, "Fuse for me." Circulating his energy, the nameless sword's light became even brighter, pulsing continuously. Even the white skeleton was completely enveloped in it, mysterious and eerie. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He cursed in his heart. The sword god was forcefully fusing with the sword spirit. If he succeeded, then Tang Zheng could only cry. Just as he was about to move, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the sinkhole. The figure rapidly fell and crashed into the ground, kicking up a large cloud of dust. Tang Zheng immediately suppressed his urge to attack. He looked at the person lying on the ground in shock. It was Qi Sha. Who was this person? Even Qi Sha was no match for him. The sword god glanced at Qi Sha and was indifferent. He continued to circulate his energy, trying to fuse the sword soul into the nameless sword. Whoosh! A person descended from the sky and landed at the bottom of the sinkhole. He shouted, "Sword god, stop." The sword god was indifferent. He asked, "Who are you? How dare you stop the sword pavilion? Do you want to die?" The person snorted and said, "So what if you are from the sword pavilion? Stop now, or your sword pavilion's sword slaves will be beheaded." Tang Zheng and the sword god looked up. The edge of the sinkhole was already filled with people. The sword pavilion's sword slaves were lined up in a circle, kneeling on the ground. Each of them had a sharp weapon on their neck, and they could die at any time. Chapter 585. The sword god glanced at the kneeling sword servant and frowned. "You deserve to die for going against the sword pavilion." As soon as he finished speaking, he had no choice but to move away from the sword soul and slash at the incoming person. A nameless wooden sword, a simple sword, descended from the sky. The sky seemed to darken. Before the sword arrived, the person's legs were already pressed into the ground by the immense sword will. The man raised both of his hands. With a flash of light and a loud crack, the man suddenly stopped and half of his body sank into the ground. The weapon in his hands turned out to be a stick. The stick had already been broken in 2, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. A wisp of astonishment and pain flashed on his face while his veins bulged. Yet he gritted his teeth and persevered. A simple sword strike was already so powerful. No wonder he was the sword god. Tang Zheng couldn't help but be speechless. If he were to fight against the sword god with his own strength, it would be like an ant trying to shake a tree, unable to withstand a single blow. "To be able to block my sword, you are not a nobody. If you still don't report your name, then you will become a nameless ghost under my sword." Sword God coldly said. Do you not care about the life and death of the sword slave? The sword god coldly snorted and said, They are dead. With me taking revenge, none of you should even think about leaving this place. All of you will be buried with them. That is enough. The person who came was also a ruthless person. He roared. Do it. Poof. Poof. Streams of blood sprinkled down from the top of the crater, as if it was raining blood. But Sword God did not even blink. He just slashed again. The newcomer roared with all his might and soared into the sky. The broken rod in his hands met the nameless sword. Bang bang. With two snapping sounds, the rod was shattered into pieces. The tip of the sword slashed towards his forehead. In the next moment, he seemed to be about to be split into two. An expression of despair appeared in his eyes. He'd underestimated the sword god's strength and determination. Not only was this person a sword maniac, he was also a cold-blooded person. So many sword slaves were unable to make him hold back. The sword god was indeed a cold-blooded person. For the sake of pursuing an even more formidable sword Dao, for the sake of a higher cultivation, how could a mere sword servant make him stop? In his heart, the importance of a sword soul far surpassed the life of a sword servant. The man was filled with regret. He had been too reckless. He had rushed to the northeast as soon as he had received the news. Just as he had found out something, he had lost his life here. However, he was not afraid. Instead, he showed a resolute expression because he was a warrior of the country. Bang! With a loud sound, the war soul sword stopped in midair. The air violently fluctuated, and a long sword as black as ink was exposed in the air. However, this sword was suspended in midair without any support, as if it was controlled by an invisible hand. Everyone looked at this scene in astonishment. Even the sword god stopped in his tracks and looked suspiciously at the black sword that had blocked his attack. Xiuzha. He suddenly frowned. Powerful. He actually followed 7 kills here. With just one look, he could tell that this sword belonged to the person who fought 7 kills, so he immediately figured out the whole story. 7 kills was lying on the ground, heavily injured, unable to move. He stared at Black Sword, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. It turned out that he had fallen for Black Sword's trap, and had led the wolf into the house. At the same time, he was filled with fear. He had been very careful along the way, but he had still been followed. Since you're here, why don't you show yourself? Why are you sneaking around? The sword god asked coldly. His voice echoed in the sinkhole like a sharp blade, stirring up every inch of space. Every word drilled into Tang Zheng's ears, as if it was going to explode his head. He endured the pain, and did not show himself as the sword god wanted. This time, he had no choice but to lend a helping hand because the person who came was someone he knew, Su Yingtian. Su Yingtian was his ally, so he could not just watch as Su Yingtian died under the sword god's sword. However, if he helped, it would be equivalent to exposing his whereabouts. If he wanted to catch him off guard, it would be even more difficult. Especially when he received the sword god's sword, he felt that his arm was about to break. The power of the sword god's sword was too great. Humph, you want to hide in front of me? Let's see if you have the ability. The sword god did not hear a response and bellowed in anger. With a slash of the nameless sword, the sky pit was filled with sword images, leaving no place to hide. Tang Zheng had no choice but to recall the war soul sword. With a sound of ding-dang, beautiful sparks flew in all directions, and Tang Zheng's figure was forced to be exposed. Whiz! The sword god's figure flashed, and the nameless sword slashed towards Tang Zheng's direction. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and used his sword to block, and with a crisp sound, Tang Zheng explosively retreated. His hands went numb, and the war soul sword actually fell to the ground. At the same time, his illusion technique had completely lost its effect, revealing his figure. You finally appeared. The sword god glared at Tang Zheng like a tiger eyeing its prey. In front of him, there had never been a junior who dared to be so unbridled and not put him in his eyes. Su Yingtian was suddenly startled as he looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. No matter what, he did not expect Tang Zheng to be here, and even save him from the gates of hell. This peck and drink was truly a fortuitous encounter. If he did not maintain a good relationship with Tang Zheng, then Tang Zheng would not have helped him no matter what. He could not help but rejoice that he made the decision to ally with Tang Zheng to deal with the Dragon Group. Not only was this beneficial to the National Security Bureau, it was also very important to him. You are Tian Chanzi's disciple. I want to see just how much you have learned from him. The sword god walked step by step towards Tang Zheng with killing intent between his brows. Tang Zheng waved his hand, and the War Soul sword flew back into his hand. He held the sword horizontally in front of his chest and faced the sword god. He coldly said, "Since the sword god is interested in sparring with me, then of course I will not disappoint you. Humph, the ignorant are fearless. You are not your master, yet you dare to be so arrogant and condescending," the sword god disdainfully said. After he finished speaking, the nameless sword turned into a ray of light and slashed towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng readied himself for action as the flying immortals from Heaven Beyond Heaven sword technique was displayed in a fluid motion. Only the sound of ding ding dang dang could be heard as Tang Zheng quickly retreated before fiercely crashing into the mountain wall, spitting out a large mouthful of blood. Tang Zheng wiped away the blood and looked at the calm and composed sword god, who did not even take a breath. He deeply felt the gap between them. To be able to receive the sword god's sword was already the limit. To think more would be an extravagant hope. However, from these sword techniques he also benefited a lot. The sword god's sword was filled with an unparalleled sword intent. It was truly a rare sword technique. Moreover, this sword technique was definitely not the rising sun, but another set of sword techniques that were even more profound. The sword god's sword techniques were outstanding, and he had more than one set of profound sword techniques. These sword techniques were all created by him, and he could truly be called a grandmaster of the way of the sword. Tang Zheng was unable to probe his opponent's cultivation, but without a doubt he was an expert in the grandmaster realm. To defeat him was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, and he did not dare to have such extravagant hopes. Thus, the most important thing was to obtain the sword spirit, and then escape. When Su Yingtian saw that Tang Zheng was able to block several of his opponent's moves, he could not help but be secretly speechless. He had still underestimated Tang Zheng's strength. He was barely able to block the two sword strikes, but Tang Zheng was able to block all of them. The difference in strength between the two was obvious. Of course, he was more concerned about whether or not he could leave safely. The members of the National Security Bureau at the edge of the sinkhole saw that their director was in great danger, and some of them could not help but come down to help him. Seeing this, Su Yingtian quickly stopped this stupid action through the headset. He could not have the attitude of the sword god who treated human lives like grass. He had to be responsible for his own members. However, Su Yingtian's heart was also in turmoil. After all, the opponent was the sword god. It was still unknown whether Tang Zheng could escape with him. Tang Zheng had his back against the mountain wall. He had no way to retreat. A sickly flush appeared on his face as he stared at the sword god who was walking step by step. Looking past the sword god's shoulder, Tang Zheng locked onto the sword spirit. Suddenly he thought of a plan and clenched his teeth. "This time I will gamble. Whether I live or die will depend on my luck." A sword flew over, but Tang Zheng did not use his sword to block it. Instead, he waved his hands forward, and an aura of black clouds blotted out the sky and enveloped the sinkhole. The sword god's nameless sword attack came to an abrupt halt as it was blocked by a giant. The four symbols venerable raised a leg and stomped down. Boom. The sword god disappeared. The place he stood had already collapsed, and there was no trace of him anywhere else. It was as though he had been stepped on by the four symbols venerable. 7 Kills was stunned for a moment before he flew into a rage. "I'll kill you and avenge master." Su Yingtian's heart skipped a beat as he watched this scene in disbelief. Could the sword god have been stomped into mincemeat so easily? Tang Zheng did not care about the sword god's life or death. He had to seize this rare opportunity to fuse with the sword spirit. With a flash, he arrived in front of the sword spirit. The battle soul sword stabbed at the sword spirit as a biting cold sword intent spread out in all directions. The sword spirit's light enveloped the battle soul sword and then enveloped the white bones below. The white bones emitted waves of white light. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He could already feel a strong sword intent seeping into the battle soul sword. This seemed to be a fusion, and it was not as simple as he had imagined. Faster, faster. Tang Zheng's face revealed joy as he silently urged. Suddenly, the joy on Tang Zheng's face came to an abrupt halt. The sword spirit's light violently pulsed, extremely unstable, and with an explosive sound, Tang Zheng fiercely smashed into the mountain wall. Only then was he able to dissolve the power. The sword spirit returned to its original state, but there was an obvious change. A wisp of clear qi slowly rose from the white bones and floated above the sword spirit. The clear qi gathered and finally formed a person's face. This person swept his gaze over them and stared at them with an unfriendly gaze. He said coldly, "You want to steal my sword spirit? How can I let you do as you wish? Who are you?" Tang Zheng was overwhelmed with shock as he looked at the other party in disbelief. "Sword Spirit Master," the other party said arrogantly. "It was just a remnant soul." Tang Zheng curled his lips. His fiery eyes of truth immediately saw through the true identity of this wisp of clear qi. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.